We hope that you've enjoyed your roast beef, or maybe you had Norfolk pork, who knows. Here we are in Snetterton, so that would be probably more appropriate. And welcome back to, I guess, what is the second half of our programme here on Front Runner. We are live from Snetterton. It is the British GT Championship. Put my teeth back in after my roast beef. And here we are at the circuit. It is bereft, as you can see at the moment, of any cars at all, but this is the GT3 pole. I'm just going to steal this from this young lady, because this is where Phil Keane and Alan Minshaw are going to be in just a minute. They're going to bring their Lamborghini here. If you missed what happened in race one, well, you missed a great race, let me tell you, because we weren't sure whether the Lamborghini was going to do it. It turned out they absolutely had the legs, and it was them and not the Aston Martin. But maybe we can get the story of race one from our two commentators today. We have Bruce Jones, the man on the mic, and sat next to him, you need an expert, and boy, have we got an expert. This man knows all about it. John Watson.
Thank you very much, Gary. John, cracking opening race. There was something happening the whole time.
But hold on a second.
All over the race.
What happened? Where was our roast beef or Norfolk pork?
Did you see
we get a
stretch
brown,
of the
we get a
overalls?
brown bag with a brown sandwich.
Well, John, I reckon if people miss this morning's race, I think it'd be a really good idea to have a quick look at the highlights of those as the cars go out towards the grid. They're going to be kicking off their racing at the top of the hour. But here are the highlights. 27 cars. You can see not all the GT4 runners fitted together on the track. That was the nose of 501 being given a bit of a push, much more of a push. Lee Mole being given a right royal shove by Mark Farmer in the TF Sport Aston Martin. Up front, though, there's a spin. Tail end of the GT3 field. That was Ian Loggy in one of the two Parker Racing Bentleys, the TF Aston Martin. Second bit of spotted problems there for Mark Farmer. But 24 Aston Martin came in from the lead, came out into the lead again, but immediately was under pressure from Phil Keane in the 33 Lamborghini. And you can see as they fought their way through traffic, it was nip and tuck, but all along the Lamborghini was getting closer and closer. No wonder Jack Mitchell looked so concerned, and it was borrowed time for 24. James Littlejohn couldn't hold on to that bit of cornering onto the back straight, and the Lamborghini was through. That's looking back from the Lamborghini, and not so far behind. The battle for GT4 honours was absolutely mighty, and that's the moment where Stuart Middleton went past David Pittard, took the lead in the class, went on to win, but overall victory, their third from 4 starts, went to John Minshaw and Phil Keane. Can they do it all again this afternoon? Let's find out. But it was nip and tuck all the way, John. In fact, I think the camera crews didn't know where to look at times. There was so much happening, particularly in GT4. Real nip and tuck stuff.
I think all the way through the field, but particularly in the lead 3 or 4 cars in both categories, it was very close. And the Aston Martin really had been the class of the field in the opening part of the race. Unfortunately for them, whether it was due to loss of grip, it looked to me like there might be a little bit of loss of rear grip. The number 24 Aston Martin got passed initially by the Barwell Motorsports Lamborghini, Phil Keane behind the wheel, and then the other Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, driven by Sam Tordoff, made an amazing, I think outstanding, probably the pass for me of the weekend so far, around the outside of Palmer, one of the new corners, or relatively new corners.
Such a tricky corner,
well,
long, fast left-hander.
The most important thing is that both drivers gave each other room to work. It would have been very easy for James Littlejohn to have just let the Aston run wide, and put pressure on Sam Tordoff. But he had the confidence and the car to do it, and he made the pass. But great to see overtaking like that, and on a circuit where you've got a relatively slow infield. It's only on those 2 main straights you can let the cars stretch their legs.
Now, looking through the windscreen of the 33 Lamborghini, it was started last time around by John Minshaw. What we have is the reverse. The pro drivers are starting the second race. The pro drivers defined the grid in qualifying for the second race, and it does have that car on pole position. Success ballast, not ballast, if you will, is added to the top 3. But one of the stories of the first race was the 31 Bentley. It finished 4th on the road. Let's find out from Rick Parfitt where they really ended up.
Well, Rick Parfitt Jr. was first in the car last time. Now it's the pros' turn to start. So can I just say, every time we come to talk to you, you've always got a story. It's either that you haven't won the race and maybe you should have done,
it's always
or
controversial.
There's something, you know. Is you just a headline grabber? Is that what it is?
Oh, I wish.
Media mogul, you.
Hardly. No, I mean it was all. I spoke to you before. It all played out exactly as we wanted it. You know, I was every lap was like a qualifying lap in that first stint to try and hang on to Menshaw, and we did a cracking job. The team did an amazing pit stop, and we thought we'd played it absolutely perfectly. But it turns out we were 0.1 of a second too perfect. 0.1 of a second, but unfortunately the rules are the rules, and so we incurred a 30-second penalty for a pit stop that was 0.1 of a second too short. But you know, hey, that's the way it goes.
So we should talk to these guys and sort of just point fingers and so on. Should we name names?
No, not at all. No, it's all good. You know, that's you know, rules are there and they have to be adhered to. And you know, it's sometimes you leave a bit of a margin. We tried to leave a margin, and we just played it a little bit too close, evidently. But you know, that's what a championship's like. Hopefully, you know, that's dented our points haul, but on another level, I thought we did a cracking job, and we came home, you know, technically fourth, which is what we wanted to do originally. And so I think we ended up eighth. It's not a massive difference in points. It's probably dropped us down, but we've got no penalties for this round now. You know, the car is proving to be really good round the fast corners, as I said. Not so fast on the straights, but we can hang in there, and hopefully we can come out with a better result here.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Okay, now let me just point out what Rick's talking about there, exactly the point made, that when he says no penalties, okay, because of where they finish, they don't get any penalty, so there's no time added to their pit stop. That's going to be important. Here he is. Let's see if we can, sorry Brownie, I'm walking right into you. There's a team talk going on here, so there's obviously chit-chat going on. What are you talking about? Having secret plans?
Yeah, keeping them all in house. Yeah, no, it's we'll see this race. P3, Lamborghinis look quick, obviously from race one, but yeah, we'll see. The Aston normally goes relatively well round here. We're starting on some good set of tyres for this race, so yeah, we'll see. See how the start can unfold, and we've got no pit stop time as well. I think the cars in front of us here have got pit stop times.
Yes. They have, and that's going to be a key to it, isn't it, I think? Yeah,
definitely. You know, it's 10 seconds is quite a lot, especially within the pros, you know, to try and find. But yeah, with the pace the Lambos had in the first race, they look quick, you know, definitely here this weekend. But yeah, no, we'll see. We just have to bag the points, and if we can get a podium this race, great.
Well, you're 2 rows further forward than Derek, so that makes your job a little bit easier, I guess.
Yeah, it's better to be this end of the grid, to be fair. We just need a good start. The Bentleys are similar pace as us, so if we could just keep that at bay and focus up front, I think we'll have a good race.
Great. All right, Johnny, thank you very much. Best of luck to you. Let's go forwards and let's go talk to, well, it'll be Phil Keane, but I don't know if John Minshaw is here, although to be fair, John Minshaw's had enough airtime. We've done nothing but talk to John Minshaw. Engineers are talking to Phil Keane. They're just having a little chat. I can't imagine for a moment, Phil, that you were talking about what you're going to do for tonight for dinner. I bet that was all a bit tactic, etc. Is there a tactic for this race?
No, not really. We'll just crack on and see where we end up. I mean, you know, we've got a penalty, so we just damage limitation, really.
Right, okay. And the last race, I mean, you brought the bacon home, to say the least, didn't you, really? That was a good race.
Yeah, I think John did a good job, handed over in a good place, and then we just had to chase James down. So, it was a good race.
Okay, great. All right, Phil, best of luck. Let's just go down to the other end of the grid. See, I keep mentioning bacon because if you come to Snetterton, all around us we've got fields, and there's an awful lot of pigs in the fields. So you see, Norfolk pork, very important. John Watson's wondering what on earth the link is, but that is the link. Right, we're going to go down to the pole man here. We're looking for the car to car 56. And we'll get down here and talk to them because they finished third in GT4 in the last race. They finished 17th overall, but because of qualifying taking place, basically whatever happened in race 1 makes no difference whatsoever in terms of qualifying. It's all down to what happened yesterday. So these guys were fastest in qualifying yesterday for this race. Let's go see if we can talk to them. Joe Osborne should be in the car. Hello.
Hello, mate.
How'd you get on yesterday? Not bad at all by the looks of it.
Yeah, it seems like we were somewhere near the sharp end for sure. destiny's in our hands now, down to me to continue with the car that Tolman and Mclaren have given me to get my head down and bring it back in the lead.
Can you have learned anything, Joe, from race 1 that will help you in this race?
Yeah, for sure. It's the first time we've done a proper long run, so 30 minutes full of fuel, used tyres. So we've come back with a couple of adjustments. We were happy with our pace in race 1, but you always learn stuff and we always want to adjust.
Okay. Starting on new tyres?
Yeah, used tyres, my qualifying tyres, so they've got 2 flying laps on them, so pretty fresh. I expect them to stay quick for the first 2 or 3 laps and then half a second drop off, and then we'll see where the rest of them are behind us.
Okay, good. All right, did you have much of a debrief after race 1?
No, we're all pretty happy boys, so we just went for an ice cream, kicked back and relaxed, and enjoyed the lovely weather.
Okay. Can I just ask the question? You've got a GoPro on your helmet. Is that just to, so that in a steward's inquiry or something?
Actually, so we're going to try. I'm going to try and talk the race live. And British GT are going to edit it post-race. So this is a POV, so my view that you see and what kicks off. So hopefully there's no controversy and I don't have to use it in the race director.
I mean, I'm going to have to talk to our producer about that. That's novel. That's a new thing, isn't it? There you go. Right, let's move across the other side to here, and hopefully we've got. Oh, hang on. He's all sort of crated in almost. For goodness' sake. Not sure how we're going to do this, but anyway, let's try it. Can we? Oh, well done. You've moved your net down. Very good. Now, Stuart, you did the last stint. No peace for the wicked. You're back in for the first stint. Stuart Middleton.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. Starting this race. So, yeah, hopefully can get a good result here. I'm going to give it my everything again, and hopefully a good result comes out of it.
One of the questions I guess really is, particularly here, what's the difference between a Ginetta and a Mclaren?
So the McLarens definitely have a lot more straight line speed than the Ginettas, so it's quite tough for us down the straight to defend from them, but then the Ginettas managed to claw it a bit more back in the mid speed and the high corners, so it's more or less balanced out evenly between the two.
Now, I don't want you to tell me team tactics, but what lessons did you learn from race 1 that you can pile into race 2 to maybe help you?
Possibly try and pass the other guys a bit earlier, but yeah, I'm just going to try and do what I did before, drive smoothly, consistently, and just wait for the perfect opportunity. So as long as I can get into a decent enough position to hand the car over the wheel, I'm sure it'll be okay.
Okay, Stuart, all right, well, very best of luck. Put your little fence back up, there you go. Well, I'll leave you to do that. God knows, it's way too complicated, I don't know how that works. But anyway, right, let's just move our way back up here again. I'd quite like, if we can, sorry, Brownie, I want to see if we can just get back up to number 6, if we can. Martin Short is here. Is he in the car? Let me just see. I think he is. This might be easier. He's also got an open face helmet. We don't come and talk to him very often, look, bless him, so let's come and talk to him today. Martin!
How you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. Looking forward to this?
Yeah, always. Yeah, Snetterton, sunny day. What more can you ask for?
I mean, how many miles must you have done at Snetterton over the years? Goodness knows.
It's funny you should say that. I was just looking at my wife, remembering back to 1988 in Formula First, sat here, and she was my only pit crew.
Really?
So, yeah. So I just had a little moment there. Yeah, so it's been a long time. Yeah, since '87. Yeah.
Now, let me just think. You are the only amateur combination, that's right, isn't it, in the class, aren't you?
Unfortunately so, yeah. We hoped that some people would come and join us. I'm amateur on the basis that I'm very old and very slow.
After all these years, how are you an amateur?
I'm just very old and slow, mate.
Can I just say, though, you wearing an open face helmet is awesome for us, because it doesn't half make a difference for telly. So thanks. Is that why you did it?
Beautiful visage.
Was it just so that we could see how beautiful you are?
Some would say I'd be better off with a full face.
Well, I couldn't possibly comment, as they say. No, why not a full face helmet, though?
It's just so much easier to get in and out for pit stops, and it's what I've always done since I adopted GT racing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, fine. It's that old police motorbike person inside him, or something like that, probably, or spending too much time with police motorbike policemen. No. Anyway, now I was hoping that we'd get a quick chat with Sam Tordoff. I don't think we're going to be lucky enough to do that. I think we're probably going to get punted off before that, although we do still have people on the grid, and we only need to get to this Team Parker car, which is just here, and Sam should be in the car. I think we've got a minute. We've got a few seconds, Sam, just to say hello.
Hello.
Hello. So let's say hello to Seb Morris and to Sam. So I think we've got one question. Can this car do it?
Yeah, I think we can. We haven't got a penalty for this race, so I think we should. We're going to have a good fight on our hands. We've got 2 sets of new tyres, so we're going to go for it.
Okay, great. Alrighty. Thanks very much, Seb. Cheers. Thank you. Off the grid we go. Let's go back then, in that case, to John Watson and to Bruce Jones.
Cutting it very far, nearly running into the pole-sitting Lamborghini. Well done there, Gary Champion, covering as much of the grid as you possibly could. John.
Now, how would that race report read if trackside commentator runs into rear wing of pole-sitting Lamborghini and the car has to withdraw? That's
headline writer's dream. I'll think about that.
Editor of Motorsport, Bruce Jones. How would you write that story?
Oh, I've still got a few minutes till press deadlines. But anyhow, now we can see the cars. 2 Lamborghinis on the front row. And of course, it was a 1 and 2 for Lamborghini in the first race. But the Aston Martin that challenged them is 4 rows further back on the pit wall side. That's the silver-silver combination. And let's stress, because it needs stressing again, it's the pro drivers in the pairings that are starting this race, changing to the AMs, and then you expect the Aston Martin to make progress.
I mean, having the pros start for me is always going to be the more exciting, because these are the guys that do this for a living. And you've got quality drivers in the front row of the grid and all the way back until you get to the first of the GT4 cars, and they've got their lead drivers in those. So it might be a different complexion of start to the race that we saw compared to what we saw in the race earlier this morning.
Well, it could well be, John, but just going back to the GT4 poll, we had a conversation with Joe Osborne. He's very much sharing with an AM in David Patterson, whereas the people like Will Tregurtha, Stuart Middleton and Alex Reed and David Pittard, much better balanced crews. So expect them, Joe's got to do everything he can and see how much he stretch ahead of them.
Starting in pole position within GT4, albeit in the middle of the field,
11th overall out of the 26 starters.
Nevertheless, it's an advantage, but it all depends on what happens here into turn 1, because if you find yourself maybe on the outside getting squeezed out or trying to squeeze up the inside and have the door close on you, you've got to be aware. So it's the battle for GT4 that they will be looking on.
GT4 just off that page. The top 10 runners are all GT3. It's the 2 Lamborghinis on the front row. Phil Keane will start with Sam Tordoff alongside. Johnny Adam, always such a hot shot for Aston Martin, will be starting 3rd in number 1. Seb Morris, just heard from him last on the grid. He will be starting 4th. Of course, they lost points in the previous round. Matt Griffin, superstar in a Ferrari. Look for him at the start of the race. Callum McLeod, need a decent result for the second Bentley. That's number 7. John Barnes, so strong in the first race, but unfortunately 2 hiccups under Mark Farmer, so they lost ground there. Ryan Ratcliffe will be looking to make that bright red and white Mercedes AM GT3 absolutely fly. The James Littlejohn in the Aston Martin that started the first race from pole, and Martin Short in the open face helmet will be starting 10th overall. Moving down to 11th place, that's the top of the GT4 runners. Joe Osborne in the Tolman Motorsport McLaren. Nice mix of cars here. McLaren Ginetta, McLaren Ginetta, McLaren Ginetta. There seems to be a bit of a pattern there. Will Stuart Middleton be able to get a jump at the start? Kieran Haggerty went very strongly and finished 3rd in the opening race. He starts 3rd this afternoon. And David Pittard will be tucked right in behind in the Lannon Racing Ginetta, number 51. And then the third of the McLarens is the Track Club entry with the 2 Adams, Adam Ballon, but starting the race, Adam Mackay. And then lots more variety down through the field. Top best place of all the Nissans down in 19th place, one of 2 from Ultratech Racing, and all the way back down to 27th position on the grid. It's the other Aston Martin from Macmillan Racing, and that will be bringing up the rear of the grid. We have the McLaren safety car leading the field around. Heat getting put into the tyres. It's been a beautiful dry day here at Snetterton. There was an electrical storm yesterday, but today is set fair. On board with 33, just looking back, this was the camera. We hope the field behind will stay close, because what we don't want is the field dwindling into the distance, because that is our pole starting car with Phil Keane on board, tucked alongside. Just behind him is Sam Tordoff, who was actually the fastest driver at the end of the race.
Phil Keane's experienced enough to know that as he comes out of the bomb hole, he's got to really slow the lead part of the pack down to enable them to get into order, and then come around Coram, and then you've got the final corner, Murray's, then the beginning of the straight, and at some point, if the field looks prepared, then the race will be underway.
At the moment, there seems to be very good GT formation, 2x2 going through Coram, the penultimate corner, but it's a corner that goes on and on. From the driver's point of view, it just keeps on turning to the right.
Looking darker, isn't it? It's just looking a little bit like there could be a surprise somewhere in this 1 hour race.
Well, that's looking to the east of the circuit. That's certainly worse than it is looking out of our other window to the west of the circuit.
Prevailing wind, we can't quite see any flags.
Well, they're limpid. The flags are absolutely hanging
maybe
flat.
We'll get away with it.
I think we will. We've only got an hour of racing to be going. The safety car pulls out of off the track into the pit lane. 27 cars right back to the number 42 Aston Martin at the back. It's the 2 Barwell Lamborghinis at the front. On pole position, it's Phil Keane. Alongside is Sam Tordoff, waiting for the drop, looking up at the gantry, looking back from 33, the pole man. Ready to go, and Johnny Adams really got the hammer down in that number 1 Aston Martin. Oh, was a touch there, yes, and oh god.
Matt Griffin nearly in the barrier.
Nearly in the barrier. It's a bit of bodywork flying around in the background, so that got a little bit tight. Big save from Matt Griffin. Started on the third row of the grid and got edged out. But look, well, he said it was a good start from Johnny Adam. He had his nose in front, but was on the outside line into Wilson on the opening lap. But Phil Keane prevails in the lead of the race. But that was a very positive start from Aston Martin and Johnny Adam.
I mean, you can tell that when you put the pros into the car, then all of a sudden the body language of each car has changed. I thought maybe Sam Tordoff would have had the opportunity to take a run around the outside of Richards. He did it so successfully in the earlier event around the outside of Palmer's, but on this occasion it's Johnny Adam who has really forced the issue, pushed that Aston Martin up into second place.
Now let's see what he can do about Phil Keane. Phil knows he's got a 10-second penalty, extra pit stop time that he must be stationary, so he's really got to get every bit of advantage he can. Johnny Adam will be handing over to Derek Johnson, but he has no extra time in the pit stop. He is allowed the minimum time in the pit stop, so his job is to just stay close to Phil Keane, as close as he can be, and then see how the race unfurls later on. Now it's almost nose to tail from the front of the field all the way back down to the second Mclaren Aston Martin. That's the one in the GT4 class. First to second, it looks so it's almost out to a second advantage. Phil Keane just starting to stretch his lead in that 33 Barwell Lamborghini, and then leading the way in GT4 it is still Joe Osborne, just ahead of Stuart Middleton and Kieran Haggerty. So it's the Tolman Motorsport McLaren leading the group. That's the grey one. Then come the Lannon Racing and HHC. I think we just had a change of position. I think we just had Haggerty going past. But anyhow, in the lead of the race, I would reckon almost a second clear as they go through Murray's final corner of the opening lap. It is Phil Keane leading from Johnny Adam, and then, oh dear, well, that's James Littlejohn, led the first part of the race.
Is he got a right rear puncture or
just
not?
Looking.
Looked like he was limping. Now, that was, I think, just before they came into the bomb hole. So that car may actually decide to go back in to the pits, but concern on the face as we now go back to...
Yeah, well, that was Derek Johnson looking on to see how his car is going. It's in second place, but clearly Phil Keane has got the legs on it, and now I think Johnny Adams is going to have to do his utmost to see what he can do about holding off Sam Tordoff, because we saw that's the corner there, Palmer, where Tordoff went around the outside to take second place in the open race. I reckon he can do it all over again. But then passing Johnny Adam.
Not with Johnny Adam behind the wheel of the Aston Martin. The opportunity would probably never arise, but having said that, you could see just coming into Agostini that the Aston Martin just slightly unstable on the braking and on the entry into that corner, so maybe everybody is actually right on the very edge of grip limits.
Well, GT4, Joe Osborne's got a little bit of an advantage, and Dave Pittard's had a very good opening lap. He's got past Stuart Middleton, so it's Lannon ahead of HHC, and we're looking through the windscreen of Stuart Middleton's Ginetta. They fought almost the entire distances from the halfway point in the race when the pro drivers took over in the first race. They were at each other the whole time, and the car that we're riding with now, 55, gained the advantage, just grabbed the moment when the GT3 rounds were going past and went through to take victory in GT4. But right now they're looking at Joe Osborne pulling clear in the Tolman McLaren.
Yes, and that's the problem the two Ginettas have got, that if the McLaren gets that clear air, even if it isn't the quickest car around some parts of the circuit, the bits that are the quick bits are where it will have its advantage, and it will stretch its legs down the Bentley straight and back up the start-finish the Senna straight.
Fastest lap of the race, no surprises there. It's set by Phil Keane, 1 minute 53.9. We know the fast lap should be down in the 1 minute 48.84, I think it was in the first race. So cars are heavy, full of fuel at the moment. GT4 battle continues to entertain. First to second, by the way, Keane to Adam, 1.5 seconds. Less of a gap in the GT4 battle because from Osborne, Pittard and Middleton, very, very close indeed. 17 GT4 runners, so their field stretches the whole way from 11th back down to 27th position. James Littlejohn has continued in that 24 Aston Martin. I'm wondering if he got contact with Matt Griffin. We'd like to see a replay at the start.
Yes,
he was 2 rows behind, but there was contact, and Griffin was spat to the left of our screen.
Matt was already lining himself up to try and go down the inside into Risha. So watch the Ferrari, the third car on the left. Matt's
the green Ferrari with the silver top, and the Aston Martin is 2 rows behind. So I don't think maybe he was involved. The Bentley seems to be coming across as a little bit.
Bentley. Yeah,
it was the Bentley.
So that was Seb Morris, and whether he was being defensive, he's certainly gone from left to right. And either he didn't even know that the Ferrari was there. If it was anything more than that, that would not be appropriate. But I think probably his focus was on what's happening ahead of me and not looking
ahead
of me.
Now we're looking back from Phil Keane, the pole. We can see the Ferrari just behind the Aston Martin there. Look at that.
No, there's no doubt the Bentley came across, hit the Ferrari in. Then in itself it got slightly out of shape. But Matt Griffin did a great job keeping the Ferrari off the barriers.
Wow. Phenomenal replay work. Kicking up the dirt, but that was looking backwards from 33. And don't forget, around the outside was the Aston Martin number 1. That's how we got back through. One we know was on the outside line up into Wilson, and then the Lamborghini reclaimed position. And then further down, this is where 24 got it wrong. So that was James Littlejohn.
Yep.
Well, classic positioning at the bomb hole.
Yeah, that is one of those corners. It can catch out anybody, particularly in an opening lap. Tyres not up to heat, full racing temperature.
Yeah, well, it drops him down to 27th position, and Littlejohn last time was up to 20th, so he'll be gaining position lap after lap. But gaining advantage lap after lap is Phil Keane, 2.003 seconds clear of Johnny Adam in the number 1 Aston Martin. Behind Sam Tordoff, another 0.6 of a second down. Callum McLeod going very well up into 4th, and John Barnes to 5th. Ratcliffe was a bit higher a few laps ago, but he has moved back a position last time around. The Aston Martin number 11 went past Barnes in the AMD tuning. Mercedes losing a little bit of ground. GT4, the battle as hot as ever. Middleton just 3rd in that grouping behind Pittard and Osborne. The 2nd would cover the top 3.
Yes, but you can see the McLaren a little bit further around with the 24 Aston Martin, a GT3 car, making up lost ground from that spin coming out of the bomb hole.
In fact, on the last lap, 8 places gained, 20th up to 12th for James Littlejohn. But we know that a really quick lap of the GT3 car can be roughly 10 seconds quicker than the rest of the GT4s here.
But what we've got is Joe Osborne in the McLaren, leading GT4. He's got a gap of, 1.7 seconds over second place. And the strength that the McLaren has is that if it gets in the lead, we saw this at Rockingham, it took forever for the Ginettas to find a way around the McLaren on that racetrack. And here, there's more straight bits, so it's got to favour the McLaren more than the Ginetta. Other than if we get into a situation of lapping traffic, where then your momentum does get stalled out. But there is the lead car in GT4, Joe Osborne.
Yeah, Joe Osborne, 10th place overall. Of course, he will be outside the top 10 shortly. Just expect that number 24 Aston Martin to come on through. James Littlejohn 12th at the start of the lap. You'll see him. Actually, he's already gone past. I think he might have already gone past in that image, waiting for the next timing beam. But 56 Tolman, Motorsport McLaren leading the GT4 class. What was his advantage last time around? 1.7 seconds over David Pittard. And let's see if we can see the Aston Martin. Yes, it's gone off up ahead, so it's gone round them. There come the 2nd and 3rd place Ginettas in the GT4 class. Pittard ahead of Middleton, and Kieran Haggerty trying to hang on behind in number 100 McLaren. Just saw it there, but again, riding on board with Stuart Middleton, looking as he twists his way round towards the end of the lap, coming up onto the start-finish straight one more time, past pit entry.
What the two Ginettas need to do is not really battle each other, but try and find a way, if the opportunity arises, where they can work together, because if they fight each other, that's only going to play to the strengths of Joe Osborne in the lead McLaren and GT3.
Yeah, and then in 4th and 5th in class, Kieran Haggerty, Adam Mackay. Plowman going very well in the number 53 Nissan. He's sort of picking his way up the order a little bit.
Yes,
he's the pro driver in that car, and as you'd expect, he's going well indeed. Martin Plowman will hand over to Richard Taffender. No disrespect meant, but one has way more experience.
Martin Plowman's lap times when he got into the car earlier today were comparable to those of the leading cars within the GT4 category, and that's the difference. Martin is effectively a bit wide coming into And that is one of the Aston Martins just
That's
allowing...
the Motorsport one of Matt Nicol-Jones.
Yeah, just possibly allowing the Ginetta to get up alongside. Wasn't close enough. As we go back to race leader, and the gap is extending. It was 2.5 seconds when they came across the line at the end of lap 4. And right now Johnny Adam is just about 0.6 of a second ahead of the Lamborghini, Sam Tordoff.
Yeah, but what we're seeing now, these two last time around, both 1 minute, in fact, within 2/1000ths of a second of each other, but half a second quicker than the two of them last time around was Phil Keane. So
yes,
that gap will continue to go out. But look, Seb Morris showing no problems at all since that clash with Matt Griffin. There is Matt Griffin in the green Ferrari. He lost out big time at the start of the race, as we saw in those replays. He's running in 7th, but running quite happily in 4th place on the track is that Bentley.
Tried to not make a manoeuvre, but certainly harry the Mercedes directly ahead. Martin Short didn't want any of it. He put the Mercedes right in the middle of the road, so any chance of Griffin or not trying to pass was certainly going to be denied.
I've just got to actually correct something I just said. It's not Seb Morris.
No,
that's Callum McLeod.
Yeah, Callum McLeod, he's down at 7th.
Yes, he's the other way around.
Or 8th, in fact.
8th, yeah. So he's behind. He's ahead of Short, but behind Griffin.
That's the contact in turn 1 between Seb Morris and the second of these two cars here, Matt Griffin. Definitely penalised both drivers. Maybe you might say, or I would say, Matt Griffin was the innocent victim, but both drivers have been penalised. Nothing appears to have been done, or there's no steward's inquiry into that start line incident. Both anxious to make up as much ground as quickly as possible.
Race officials, though, are looking at a couple of cars for transgressing track limits at turn 4, which is Agostini. It's the double left behind the paddock, effectively. And car 24 is one of those, and car 43. 24, we know, is James Littlejohn. And 43, I think, is Martin Plowman. No, it's not. It's Jacob Mathiasson, who's down in 18th place overall. So track limits very much a buzzword at the moment. Car 88 also being investigated for that, and that is Martin Short.
Well, that Mercedes AMG GT3 is a mighty bit of race equipment, and it is a physically large car. When you see that car in the paddock, you know, UK racetracks, by and large, outside of Silverstone, are what I would call normal width. When you put 2 or 3 of these GT3 cars on the track, suddenly it looks a very narrow racetrack.
Well, we talked to Martin Plowman. There is the 53 Nissan 370Z chasing after Adam Mackay in the 72 Track Club McLaren. And again, when we compare 2 different manufacturers of cars around the circuit, you can see how they handle quite differently. Certainly notable differences between the Ginetta and the McLaren, and the Nissan 370Z, something very different all over again. I mean, it's much taller, doesn't it?
Well, the Nissan might be described as being not the prettiest car on the racetrack, but it is actually a pretty effective race car, on top of which it's got a mighty V6 Nissan engine under the bonnet, the front engine Nissan, very much front engine rather than mid front engine. So it's a car that has yet really to unleash its true potential, but Martin Plowman behind the wheel right now is certainly doing that, and that's encouragement.
Yeah, so great battles wherever you look, particularly in the GT4 class. They really are getting some great racing in this 2017 British GT Championship. Car number 100 just diving into Rich's, quite a quick corner still. Kieran Haggerty, he finished 3rd in the opening race this morning. So picking up some very useful points here at Snetterton, but it's anybody's guess who's going to finish where in this grouping behind. Very, very close indeed. And now we've got Plowman being harried in that 53 Nissan. McLaren tucked in right behind him.
What will be interesting to see is when the pit lane window opens 25 minutes in for 10 minutes, and we're some 12 minutes away from that. Weather. Bob Neville, there's the man who runs the 2 Nissans, Ultra Tech Racing Team RLN. So will the pro drivers who are in all these cars at the start, or certainly the silver drivers maybe in the GT4, will they stay out longer than we saw the AMs when they were handing their car up? They all came in at the earliest opportunity.
Yeah, you'd have to presume that it would be the longer first stint rather than the shorter first stint, as we saw in the first race. But Adam Mackay hanging on in 2 places further back. Another Mackay, Ewan Mackay in the 29 McLaren, just ahead of 43 Jacob Mathiasson, and the Ginetta in the background with the orange flanks. But really, if you're looking in the Ginetta class, it's the class of Pittard and Middleton, and behind is getting very close indeed.
Martin Plowman, I think, believes that he's quicker on a lap than the McLaren. But of course, the McLaren's got very, very good performance where it matters at Snetterton. So Martin Plowman having to think about what can he do, where can he make the strengths that he enjoys offset where the Mclaren might be.
So, I think that's
Tim
of course.
From Northern Ireland.
From Northern Ireland, but lives in Kuala Lumpur or somewhere, does he not? Commutes for his racing. So the start, we're going to be offered another chance to have a look at the replay. We've seen it from quite a few angles, and still trying to make head or tail of what went on when we had the Matt Griffin Ferrari going into pit entry. It's going very well now. There's Seb Morris, who was involved in it. He got dropped down to 8th place in that one position.
What is evident to me, and we'll see it again, is there is the Bentley on the right of the picture. It goes from left of track, right of screen, across, and you can see the Ferrari trying to put itself into a position to be able to slip down the inside. Then the contact occurs, and it seems to upset the whole equilibrium of Seb Morris. The McLaren Bentley gets through, and then all of a sudden Seb Morris is sort of left in no man's land.
Yeah, I think what happened, Morris was reacting to when he's got a drive-through penalty, has just come onto the screen. So we just talked about it. There is that it's been a judge. He's to blame. I think he was making a better start than Sam Tordoff ahead of him, and he decided, I'm going right to go round you, and there was Matt Griffin.
Perfectly fine, perfectly something you can do, but if there's a car alongside you and you're not aware of it, you ought to be. That's part of the responsibility. So you've got big mirrors on either door, you've got a large mirror in the middle of the cockpit. So I know that there's pressure and stress on the opening, few yards or 120, 30 yards into turn 1, but clearly the move from left of track across led to the contact.
It was a fulsome move.
In effect, to the penalty that he's now had to serve out.
Yep, so they already had a 30-second penalty in the first race for being, as his teammate Rick Parfitt Jr. pointed out, 0.1 of a second too quick in the pits. That put them back from 4th to 7th. This has put them from 8th on the circuit back down to the very back of the 27-car field.
Yeah, that's hard work. I mean, to make any progress from now on with, just over 9 minutes before the pit lane window opens, you'd be lucky to get up to the tail of the last of the GT3 cars, which is James Littlejohn currently in, he's now in 9th place because the Bentley, Seb Morris, the number 31 car, has effectively been dropped to the tail of the field.
Well, GT4 battling still going on right the way down. And look how many GT4 cars we have just streaming through, all the way back down to the Aston Martin at the tail. Jan Jonk, here he's just at the bottom of the picture.
There's the
race leader. That's what he's got to pass,
absolutely.
shortly.
But is there not a message there that GT4 racing has taken over in some respects because of cost escalation to GT3? GT4 very much more affordable, much nearer to the specification of the road car that you can go to your local dealer, be it a McLaren. Calling McLaren a local dealer doesn't sound right, but any of the product that are in GT4, the car that's racing is not a million miles away from the one that you can go and buy.
And as you saw at lunchtime in the paddock, Watty, there were lots of them parked alongside the SRO hospitality area. Those are the cars that are racing out in GT4, and the GT3 versions are also out on the circuit. But the applicability of GT4 is what's really caught on. More and more manufacturers producing cars for people to go and race all around the world. It really is a success formula and fits in very nicely beneath GT3. Very different forms of racing, but the fact they can coexist, have them on the same agenda, I think works really well. It's proven.
You only have to go back 6 or 7 years ago, and a GT3 car of the day would probably not even outperform the GT4 car of today. So such has been the speed of development. And you're looking at the Bentley there. I mean, you look at the Bentley, open the bonnet, you have to look down. You need a pair of step ladders to look down to see where the engine is located. It's so low and so far back in the chassis. And that's what Mercedes are doing, BMW are doing with their, and to a lesser degree Aston Martin, because that's slightly older technology. Again, the Bentley slightly unstable, that initial brake and turn, a little bit of a wobble.
But Callum McLeod seems very conversant with that, very happy with that. He's 3/4 of a second down on Sam Tordoff, so a really strong race. Tordoff in 3rd, Tordoff in 4th. Now, the first car, the leader, there it is with Phil Keane already picking his way through the GT4 runners, but he was on his own. He had that buffer of about 4.5 seconds. But the next grouping coming up here, Johnny Adam just starting to go past. 3 GT3 runners coming through. Adam in the Aston Martin, Tordoff in the Lamborghini, and then McLeod at the back of that grouping in the Bentley. The lights are flashing away. The next car he wants to pick off is Jan Jonk in that number 42 Aston Martin. And this cannot afford to lose even half a second.
Well, it's not a matter of just losing a second. What you have to make sure is that when you commit to making your overtake, that you're confident that the car you're passing is aware of you coming through. And it's when you get into a group of cars, such as we've got here, 3 or 4 GT4 cars, all involved in their own race. Their concentration and focus is all looking forward. That's what happens. Unless you've got this very wide spatial awareness, sometimes you forget to check your mirrors.
Well, no wonder Callum McLeod has got the lights flashing away on the number 7 Bentley. He lost out. It was just unfortunate for him. The group of traffic was in his way, in his path as he came out of the hairpin at Wilson, turn 2 of the lap. He's trying to pick it back up again, and now you can see the Aston Martin Johnny Adam going right to the outside of the circuit around the 54. That's the other one of the Ultratech Nissans. But Sam Tordoff has worked it very well indeed in that number 6 Lamborghini, tucked in behind. There, unfortunately, the 59 McLaren had to go somewhere. It's in between the pair, but as soon as they're out of the corner, Sam Tordoff is hard on the gas and powers his way past. So I don't think he lost too much momentum there.
No, it's sort of more or less status quo. So the advantage still lies with Johnny Adam, and Johnny Adam is going to be a difficult character. Callum McLeod in the Bentley trying to slip through as quickly and lose as little time as possible. But I remember back to Monza in the GT3R race, and in that final stint, Johnny Adam was absolutely scintillating. So that car has got out and out pace, and Johnny Adam is the driver who can take it to its limits.
Yeah, he's been racing Aston Martins at the top end for quite some while now, and people still talk of that drive at Monza. Fastest overall lap in the race from a driver in a Pro-Am combination, but he's very much the pro. He's clearly having to be a pro to keep Sam Tordoff behind him. Sam was mighty in the closing half of the first race here this weekend. That was early this morning. And now the 501. Ginetta between the two of them, but it's still Johnny Adam in second place in the number 1 Aston Martin. Sam Tordoff in third, tucked in behind. Don't forget Tordoff in the 6th Lamborghini finished second in the Lamborghini 1-2 in the first race, and is hoping he can repeat that. But for now, Johnny Adam is doing his bit to keep Aston Martin right there in a possible podium position.
And what I'm watching from Johnny Adam is he knows how to use his car, how to position it to any effect. Even if Sam Tordoff got a flyer, he would find it difficult because always the Aston Martin will be on the part of the racetrack that Sam Tordoff would like to be.
Yeah, and what you don't see in the back of that picture is the number 7 Bentley. So Callum McLeod has lost ground, but now he might be able to gain a bit back because GT4 cars 2 abreast in front of Johnny Adam and Sam Tordoff. Can Tordoff get up inside the 43? Yes, he can, but almost touching doors. That was very tight, John.
It was tight, and Sam Tordoff momentarily hesitated because he wasn't sure. The very thing I just mentioned, that you get a group of 4, so big off. There's that 2 cars
59's
contact.
gone for a spin. It's Akil Rabindra. He had a spin in the first race, and there is bodywork damage there. Is anyone else
just one car? There we go.
So last time around it was Matt Nicol-Jones. 43, we saw him moments ago. That was Jacob Mathiasen.
And his left front damage.
Now, did Mathiasen spin and get collected by Rabindra?
Damn it, I think there's been contact between the
that
Bentley.
was Callum McLeod.
Yes.
We were debating whether he could keep up. He had a couple more cars to pass, and clearly he went for an opportunity that didn't result in the pass. It has resulted in contact. Whether it was with 43, well, let's have a look at a replay coming up very quickly. Well done, crew. So the back of the there's the McLaren 59. Oh, the lockup is in the background, and Callum McLeod has had contact with Jacob Mathiasen and spun the Ginetta round.
But what happened to McLaren
was further round the corner. McLaren was up ahead. So limping in, the number is not a good race for Bentley. That's the second pit visitor from the 2 Bentleys, and there is Jacob Mathiasen out of the Ginetta. He'll be very frustrated with that.
Now they may want to clear that car, so that might see either a full course yellow.
Okay, Johnny Adam, just to let you know, 6.6 seconds down on Phil Keane, the race leader, should anything involve safety cars and the like. Not suggesting it will necessarily, but this is the battle for second place. Still Johnny Adam being pushed super hard by Sam Tordoff, less than half a second behind them, but they've been in the thick of the GT4 battle. Now they're in the real battle of GT4. They're up at the front end of the grouping, just gone past number 55, which is Stuart Middleton, running 3rd in class. David Pittard just ahead of him, and up 3 and a bit seconds clear in the Tolman Motorsport McLaren is Joe Osborne, leading the way in GT4, and he will get to see the 2nd and 3rd place tussle come past him in the next half a lap, I would reckon.
Yes, and what Joe Osborne would do, in my opinion, is step aside when these 2 battling cars for 2nd place overall attend or catch up to him. because he doesn't need to lose time. Let's look again.
Well, this is the McLaren. He's having a squeeze from one of the Ultratech Nissans, or not necessarily a squeeze. They got close together, and round he went. The Nissan rejoined the circuit, so that was just up ahead of where the Bentley clashed with the other Ginetta.
The Nissan was on the outside of a right-hand corner, so quite how that all happened, maybe a slight misunderstanding between the two individuals behind the wheel.
But I think particularly at bomb hole, you've got to be pretty accurate with your line. If you start to change it partway through the corner, you have a change of balance of the car, and clearly maybe a little bit of over adjustment in the 59.
1 minute to go before pit lane opens.
Well, expect our race leader Phil Keane to stay out probably for about another 10 minutes. There's Derek Johnson starting to get consider that he might be putting his helmet on soon, but all of these pro runners are going to stay out for about another 8 minutes.
They're going to stay out for the last possible opportunity. And who will then be first in? Will it be the Aston? Will it be the Lamborghini? Will it be Phil Keane, leader, 7.5 second advantage? So there will be tension now with the driver of these partnerships, because they know that when they get in, they've got to do their bit, and they will not want to let down any of the 3 or the 4 top 4 cars.
Well, the car running in 4th place at the moment is John Barnes in the number 11 Aston Martin. He'll be handing over to Mark Farmer. We just saw Mark in the garage, Derek Johnson in the background. But, of course, Mark Farmer had a spin in the first part of the race. That would be preying on his mind. Have to put it behind him. But don't forget that the number 33 Lamborghini will have 10 extra seconds at a standstill. Johnny Adam will not have any extra seconds. He's 7.5 seconds down.
I mean,
let's do the maths, John.
It's 2.5 seconds right now.
To the good.
Yes, so the Aston Martin number 1 will shoot, in theory, be able to take advantage of that 10-second for winning.
And the second car in this grouping, the number 6 Lamborghini, will also have an extra 7 seconds. So it's looking very good in the world of number 1 Aston Martin. Yeah. Derek Johnson knows he doesn't have the pace of Johnny Adam, but at least it's going to give him a nice little edge clear when he starts his stint. And have
potentially track position, but will be out in front of the GT3 pack.
Exactly.
So Minshaw getting himself prepared,
and the fact there's still quite a lot of time on the clock indicates he's probably got about 6 minutes until he will be taking over from Phil Keane. Phil just going through Richards, and there was a clear sight of what his lead was. It was 7.5 seconds last time around. It's 8.0 seconds, another half-second gain, but still Johnny Adam car number 43 and 7 will be investigated.
Yeah.
Well, Okay, so we're just being promised another angle of the incident, not between these two. That's Johnny Adam and Sam Tordoff, who've been fighting nice like this since the opening lap of the race. This is coming up to the S's, and on the outside line is the Ginetta. On the inside line, probably almost slightly ahead, if anything, there was Callum McLeod, but now you can see the bodywork damage, flat tyre, and limping back, so the race effectively over for the number 7 Bentley crew. They're running in 10th at the moment with Callum McLeod.
It looked from that the Bentley was sufficiently alongside.
This is the car from 3rd in GT4. It's Stuart Middleton handing back across to Will Tregurtha. They've won the last 2 races in GT4. They won the one this morning, and they won the one both closely fought at Rockingham last time out. So that's Stuart Middleton out of the car. Well, you heard from him before the race, strapping in Will Tregurtha. But really at the front end, of course, Joe Osborne will stay as long as he can in the McLaren that's leading the class, and then hand over to David Patterson.
Some people might ask, why are the pit stops so long? Part of that is because they're intended to be long to preclude teams from going into high-tech pit stop gear. Keep the budgets at an affordable level and let everybody have a chance, rather than the one top team doing something that nobody else can afford to do.
And having a whole host of mechanics, this keeps the number of them down. The fact they park in this echelon formation and can still just be pushed out backwards. Here is Joe Osborne leading the GT4 class for Tolman Motorsport in their black McLaren. Well, dark grey McLaren. David Patterson will take that over.
McLaren.
Stealth, that's better. I always quite like gunmetal, but it's darker than that. It is definitely stealth, I think. You're right there, John. So 56, lapping 11th overall, but top in GT4. Should be about another 5 laps until that comes in for David Patterson, but sitting on a very nice, comfortable lead, having had those 2 battling Ginettas behind from Nanan Racing. There is a Nanan Racing car taking a very late dive into the pits.
Also, the lead between 1st and 2nd is now 8.7 seconds, so the downtime is only going to be currently a 1.3 seconds, so you're getting almost to the zone. It's going to be a net, watch that white line, it's going to be a net situation. So Phil Keane still pushing. Last lap was 149.4, Johnny Adams last lap 150.1, so 0.7 of a second to the advantage of Keane in that last lap, and that's why the advantage is stretched from 7.5 to 8.7 seconds, well, over the last 2 laps anyway.
Well, just seen David Pittard hopping out of the GT for Ginetta, number 51 that was third in the class. Alex Reed taking over. He had a very strong stint as well in the first race. Almost the half distance point in this 1 hour race at Snetterton on this glorious late May sunny bank holiday weekend. Leading the way is the 33 Lamborghini. Phil Keane started from pole, worked his way clear, sitting on a lead of getting close to 10 seconds. He's got 10 seconds extra he must have in his pit stop. So every half second he can gain in this next few laps, absolutely crucial.
And using the effective clear air that he's enjoying right now to be able to drive precisely where he wants to place his Lamborghini, the Barwell Lamborghini, and not being bothered by an attack from behind. His biggest concern will be threading his way through the lapped traffic and maintaining as much of that pace. Last lap was a 1:49.5, which was actually, compared to his last one, his best is 49.0, as opposed to the best in the race, which I think 48.4 was actually the best lap in the race this morning.
Right, this could
9 seconds.
9 seconds. Well, he's got still about 4 more minutes until he can come in, so let's call it 2 more laps he can put in sensibly. And let's ride on board with Phil Keane. This could be his last run here at Snetterton.
If I was Barwell Motorsport, I would keep him in
until the last second.
Up until the last nanosecond, let alone second, because he's doing a great job. He needs to stay in the car to get that advantage over second place Adam up to or beyond 10 seconds to negate that 10 second success penalty that he has to face.
And what he has up ahead of him is relatively clear track, so he's able to maximise. In fact, he's got one of the Bentleys up ahead. It's the bright green wings, and that's the car that was started by Callum McLeod. Ian Loggie's taken over and kept very tidily out of the way there.
Yes, and importantly too, to come onto the straight, to carry your momentum onto the straight. In fact, he didn't lose it.
Did Callum McLeod make his pit stop for that replacement tyre before the pit stop window? He might do.
No,
Still listed as Callum McLeod
before the window opened.
Yeah, so it's not Ian Loggie, but it's Callum McLeod keeping very tidily out of the way. He knows his race in terms of points is going to be very limited. Oh,
he's limping. He's limping.
Oh, well then. Oh, okay, so this was a car I wonder why he slowed so much. I thought that the gentlemanly and the really is gentlemanly. But
I thought maybe he's doing the correct thing and pulling over, letting the race leader go away, but there's clearly a technical problem. And the Bentley it's not, I doubt it's being driven under power. It looks like it's just coasting. And where is it going to come to a standstill? So just under 29 minutes of this race remaining. Pit stop window closes. So he's going to get possibly two more laps.
He's down the Bentley straight,
yes.
So he's got half the lap to go. He's gone behind the back of the paddock. The Bentley on the Bentley straight. I think they better change the name of that fairly shortly.
I wonder whether the Bentley, it looks like it's not this, was it on limp home mode? He's not pulling, he's thinking about pulling over because he's coming down now. Yes, he is. He's decided
at that rate he'd never go all the way around.
And also he wants to get the car way. There's a bit of an access slot there. Whether he would get the car into that or not, hard to tell.
You do wonder if Team Parker Racing walked on the cracks in the pavement or something. They got a penalty for the 31 car in the first race. That's then had its problems, the drive-through penalty in this race, and now the problem for number 7. Here comes 31, its second visit to the pits, this time an intentional one. Rick Parfitt Jr. will take over from Seb Morris. There's Rick just lining up by the car.
Concern, Bruce, because the lead gap has actually reduced. It was 9.1 seconds. Suddenly it's now 8.9.
John, thank goodness we got 2 sets of eyes on the screens. But on my own, I'd have missed that. But it's that 10-second element we're waiting for. Now, this is John Barnes drove a very good stint. Came in from 4th place in the number 11 Aston Martin. We'll hand that over to Mark Farmer. Leading the way, Phil Keane. Can we see anything wrong with the car, John? I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill.
No, I think it was
all under control from the Demon Tweeds crew.
It was getting past the Bentley, coming onto the straight. There's just a little hesitation, and then the Bentley pulled over. We didn't realise that actually it's got a technical problem. So now that would have Phil Keane.
But as we said, John, it's 10 seconds or nothing. You needed to be beyond that to be sure with a minimum pit time for all these crews. They've got the extra 10 seconds that they have to be at their stop, and they're 8.993 seconds clear last time around.
He's in.
He comes. I reckon he could have squeezed another lap.
Easy. Another lap was not a problem. But again, it's where you will drop in, so the team will try to work that out. Come to a standstill, undo all the bits and pieces of the driver's safety net, which is inside of the door. It takes time to get all those things detached. You're not permitted to undo the seatbelt buckle. You can loosen the seatbelt shoulder straps, but not release the buckle until you're at a standstill.
Okay, what we saw was the third place Lamborghini Sam Tordoff coming in at its pit garage ahead of the Johnny Adam Aston Martin, but Adam is much closer to pit exit. In fact, being number one, he is the closest garage to pit exit, so they've got no one in front of them. He will be handing that over to Derek Johnson. Sam Tordoff will hand over the 6th Lamborghini to Liam Griffin, still waiting for the green and red, number 33, to hit the deck. Down it goes, can't be released yet. They've got to serve this minimum time plus the 10 seconds. That's the crucial element. So in fact, we could have the 6th Lamborghini going out at exactly the same time.
Well, this Dolphus Jax has been pushed back, as is the 33. So hesitation.
I almost wonder if that's the team saying, let's just make sure the 33.
Well, it's on a time, they can't push them back.
Well, anyhow, where's the Aston Martin? Is it going to come out ahead of them?
Has it got blocked in? No, it's number one.
Another car was behind him, and he should be passed. There is the 6th Lamborghini on its way. That will come out behind, but the 33 is back into the lead of the race. You can see coming out of pit exit. How unfortunate. It was the 501 Ginetta that blocked the Aston Martin crew from pushing it back. So, okay, Derek Johnson, stay cool, stay calm. You would have come out almost exactly in the same position. That was super, super tight with those 10 extra seconds.
Third place Liam Griffin now in the Lamborghini.
Of course, he had an extra 7 seconds. That's why he was held. Quite right. I jumped myself.
Can Liam Griffin run down Johnson in the Aston Martin, or are they sort of fairly equally matched in terms of their individual respective paces?
Well, John Minshaw did the opening stint in this morning's race, handed over from a 2nd place, and then the rest is history as Phil Keane went on to victory. Phil drove a very strong opening stint.
Derek Johnson slides down the inside, gets through cleanly, so he's up to pace. He's not taking that little momentary lap, corner or whatever to feel the car. Johnny Adams just explaining to the engineers how the car was responding, and basically he couldn't do anything with the lead car. It just pulled away, and in effect he was having to be defensive for part of that race on the Sam Tordoff, the number 6 Lamborghini.
Yeah, so it's so funny, you get so used to the driver combinations, then they're all changed at the halfway point in the race, and instead of Adam holding off Tordoff, it's now Derek Johnson.
2nd place. There's a static or a wave yellow flag.
Well, that could be a role player.
That may be an issue if drivers continue to go past that car with that flag being waved. There could be drivers getting caught out because they're not meant to go past that faster than their quickest time during the event.
Certainly something to consider for all the drivers. Maybe it will actually favour the number 1 Aston Martin. Derek Johnson, he cannot be passed by the Tordoff car that's now the Liam Griffin car, the number 6 Lamborghini, some distance back, but it's a chance for these drivers to reappraise. That car's been there for a couple of laps, that number 7 Bentley that's beached down the Bentley straight. They all know it's there, but the waved yellow flags are certainly passing a message. We're wondering if there's going to be a safety car. No message on screen.
4.8 seconds between lead Lamborghini and 2nd place Aston Martin.
2.7 seconds.
I wish they'd switch their transponders over.
Yeah. We know it's not Keane ahead of Adam. Our screens are telling us that. We know it is John Minshaw. And SC, the safety car, well, we thought it might be coming our way. It has come our way. So for John Minshaw, suddenly that ups the pressure.
Yeah, nothing
leading
like
the race by nearly 5 seconds.
He's a businessman. He understands pressure. This is his leisure pursuit. It'll be no problem. But of course, look at the cars. 2 GT4 cars
in between.
Now, whether those get waved around to join the tail of the whole process, it also is critical that the safety car picks up as soon as possible number 33. And there's a safety car waiting in pit lane exit. It'll be being advised of the 33, which is coming through probably the bomb hole right now, and then around Coram, and then back onto there it is.
I don't think it's even as far as the bomb hole.
No, so it's still on the
Bentley straight.
Bentley straight, indeed.
There it is, going past the stricken Bentley, number 7, off at the side of the circuit. So the cars we saw are half a lap down rather than 3/4 of a lap down, which is the number 88 Mercedes AMG and 31 Bentley. But here is the 33 Lamborghini leading the race. It won the first race this morning. Didn't do it from the front, had to work its way to the front. Phil Keane finished off the job, started by John Minshaw. And now it's John Minshaw leading the way, hoping to finish off the job. Started in turn by Phil Keane from pole position. So, safety car out on the circuit, and the order will be sorted. And we might have some wave-throughs, but importantly, at the moment, unless there are wave-throughs, there are 2 GT4 cars between this, the race leader, and Derek Johnson.
Safety car is out on track. Maybe it could have waited a little bit longer to let those GT4 cars go through before we got There's three of them, in fact, before we got the race leader. Nevertheless, we've got the safety car on track, and for John Minshaw, he'll want to, when the track goes green, to find a way as quickly as possible. He will gain just simply a not straight line performance and braking and cornering and whatever else. But he has to be aware that Derek Johnson and the Aston Martin will be prepared to pounce at any opportunity. You get squeezed out unintentionally in the return to green flag racing.
So it's not the case it was slow for the drivers. Mark Lemmer down in the Barwell camp, he's still relatively happy. They've just got to slightly adjust their minds. And for Derek Johnson, he's really got to start planning exactly the moves in his mind, how he's going to get past those GT4 interlopers, if you will, that are staying between him and the race leader.
Well, in fact,
car.
now we've got the Lamborghini, beg your pardon, as now behind the safety car. So for Derek Johnson, everything has sort of maybe worked slightly against him. He had hoped that those GT4 cars that were ahead of the lead Lamborghini might not get the wave round.
Now, John, just ahead of the pit stops, we were talking about who would have to stay static for longer. We knew the race leader, the 33 car, was going to have 10 extra seconds, but there, just as they wanted to push the Aston Martin potentially back into the lead of the race, or into the lead of the race, you had a GT4 car being accelerating away behind it.
Indeed,
and they had to hold it for maybe 2 seconds, and that was enough.
And probably more. And there you can see the effect is the Lamborghini got the opportunity to get ahead, the Aston Martin now on screen. So if they could have come out virtually nose to tail had it not been for the other car, the McLaren or the Ginetta making its way down the pit lane. There's one of the recovery vehicles, whether it will tow it somewhere convenient or whether we'll have it tow the entire circuit back to the pit lane.
Yes, what we can't see from here, John, is the gap that we can see on the left-hand side of the screen, how much further back up the track that is, because obviously you can't put it in the reverse direction, or the direction reverse to the traffic.
There is another gap, I think, just further down, so they might just pull it down there and get it away safely. It's in that kind of position, coming close to the braking zone, to the part of the racetrack where cars are beginning to fan out again. So you don't want a substantial object just off the edge of the racetrack in one of the more challenging parts of the circuit.
Certainly one of the fastest parts of the circuit, the Bentley Straight. So, also worth pointing out that John Minshaw on his outlap from the pits extended that advantage over Derek Johnson. There might have been a bit of traffic at play, but certainly John Minshaw very much quickly into his stride. The 56, of course, Joe Osborne started that in GT4 from pole and was leading the class. Now in the hands of David Patterson, leading the class. Has he flagged around? This is often what happens. You focus on the GT3 runners when you get a safety car period, and you might have someone gaining in GT4. Has that flagged him round?
That looks to me like it's
half a lap.
Yes, it is.
Well.
That might well work. Very beneficially. There we see the Bentley.
There is that McLaren in the background, turning into the S's now, into Brundle and then into Nelson. So David Patterson, a late comer to racing, started racing in his mid-50s. This could be a golden Sunday for him at Snetterton. But the clock keeps ticking down behind the safety car. 18 and a quarter minutes. This 1 hour race is still to go. But at the moment, he can press on and join the back of a queue. And he should have really a very handy thing. Safety car waiting to see if the lights go out on the,
it's out now,
the roof. No,
yes,
they're still on.
It's still on.
Just waiting for the signal. But we're hearing word that the if the car's coming in this lap, they will be turned off around the point of the bomb hole. So certainly for John Minshaw, he'd be the first one to see that. Yes, safety car in this lap, so good guesswork. Not guesswork, it's all knowledge, I suppose.
There is the...
So the lights will go off, but catching all the time, David Patterson will be going...
McLaren and GT4.
Is it almost too good to be true? Is this almost too good to be true? Because he knew that Joe Osborne would do a good stint in the first part of the race and build as big an advantage as he can. But now with this safety car appeared very early in David Patterson's stint, it's given him an absolutely golden opportunity. Just looking to see what the gap is. It's 21 seconds. And this is the group trying to get off after him. These are second, third and fourth in the GT4 class.
I mean, they're almost racing. They're not literally at racing speeds, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to catch up to the tail of the 56 lead McLaren and GT4.
Yeah, so
safety car is going to be coming in. There is the safety car now, just about to enter the back straight, the Bentley straight.
And then in the far distance, you can see go out to Agostini's second, third, and fourth in the GT4 class. So it's Will Tregurtha, Alex Reid, and Sandy Mitchell in the number 100 McLaren. But up in the wild blue yonder, we know, is the Tolman Motorsport entry. 20-something seconds clear on the start-finish line. 21 seconds. But it will close because, of course, the lights are now out. But, of course, the Tolman McLaren has caught the tail of this group. So he's been given an advantage. And luckily for him, the safety car is not doing one more lap. Otherwise, all of that would come right back onto his tail. But for David Patterson, just over a quarter of an hour of this race remaining. Let's see if he can hang on and take a famous win in GT4. But there's a lot of racing to go. And it's going to start again in earnest any moment now. There's lights off on the roof of the safety car. There they are. That will peel into the pit lane. Behind, we've got John Minshaw, 2 GT4 runners. You can see the 370Z Nissan and the McLaren. And then Derek Johnson in the number 1 Aston Martin. He's in second, and right behind.
Further back in third place, Liam Griffin. He's got,
I can't remember, he's got
4 or 5 cars, GT3 cars. So he's going to have to do a lot more work, and he's being, I think he's actually, he's backed it up.
He really has
so
backed
watch
it up.
Minshaw, he's got to go now and use the advantage of that lead position. Derek Patterson behind in the Aston Martin has got to get his way past the Nissan and the McLaren to keep in contact with the lead. So Minshaw's lead coming across the line ought to have extended. 2.3 seconds showing at the end of lap 22.
But great frustration for Derek Johnson there. He wanted to put the hammer down, and he could see that John Minshaw had done that in the lead, but he couldn't pass those GT4 runners until they got to the start-finish line. So he had to hang back. That would have cost him a second, maybe a second and a half. Now he's setting off, doing what he can to go after John Minshaw. But what we saw in the first race is the Lamborghini Huracan is so well suited to this circuit, the modern day Snetterton, with such a twisty infield. Then you get into the straight line. The Aston Martin doesn't lose out too badly, but through the corners it very much is the case of the Lamborghini being the car to have. So it was listed as 2.3 seconds on the start finish line. You can certainly feel that will extend the gap between John Minshaw and the 33 Lamborghini leading the way, and Derek Johnson doing his utmost in the number 1 Aston, giving chase. And how much further back was Liam Griffin? Another 5 seconds on the start line. And GT4, well, unfortunately for David Patterson, they caught him up under that safety car. With there being 1 lap fewer, he had a 20-second advantage, and now it's right on his tail. First to fourth in GT4, absolutely nothing between them. Will Tregurtha tucked in behind David Patterson. Alex Reid has lost position because Sandy Mitchell has gained a place.
Down and takes that position away. But as he opened up the door, and the other McLaren gets up alongside, so it was a brave move, a late break. But it's all for nothing because he does not want to be behind another McLaren coming onto the Bentley straight.
Yep, and again you can see the straight line speed of the McLaren's really good, but that was a fantastically positive restart from Sandy Mitchell, from 4th in class to 3rd, up to 2nd, into 1st. And for David Patterson, I'm afraid, his moment of glory has been very short-lived indeed, and there is Sandy Mitchell, just ahead of Will Tregurtha, then David Patterson, and now he's got Alex Reid right on his tail in the Lannon number 51, Ginetta, weaving one way, weaving another, but you can't do too much weaving around the outside as
very
bomb
close,
hole goes
very
to
close.
Coram.
Watch for a move up in the inside coming into Coram. Can Ginetta get up? No, it didn't. It looked like it had a lot more speed out of the bomb hole, but couldn't translate it. So back down, and he squeezed by. He just dived down the inside, but lost momentum on the exit. So the straight line performance of the McLaren draws it up alongside and going to have it pull ahead. That's the downside of breaking down the inside into Murray. You really lose all your exit speed.
Yeah, I don't think David Patterson was too impressed with that. He certainly thought, well, I'm not going to roll over for you. So he nailed it, but then better exit speed from Murray. Now, can he defend the position? Doesn't look as though he's going to defend position as they go up to Wilson. He's got to turn in at some point. Now he has. It looked from the first shot as though Alex Reid was that little bit closer, but through the twisty infield, let's see what Reid can do in the Lannon Ginetta. This GT4 battling, absolutely fantastic. They're fighting over 3rd place in class, but at the same position. Last lap, that was fighting over the lead. Sandy Mitchell now into the lead of the class, and number 100 McLaren. Will Tregurtha giving chase, and if Tregurtha can get ahead, that will mean the HHC Motorsport crew will have taken 3 GT4 wins in the last 3 races. Riding with Tregurtha, number 55, 2nd in GT4. The 100 McLaren right in front of him, and a better exit from the corner, but they're going to have to flip over to the other side of the circuit, so advantage to Sandy Mitchell in one of the 2 Garage 59 McLarens. Going a little bit wide, just trying to see exactly. You can't see them through the number on the screen.
It's just difficult. Our view. You can just use your car, place it in the case of the McLaren to preclude an overtaking attempt through that quite double apex Williams corner. Now onto the straight, and there you can see flat, foot flat to the floorboards, and the McLaren still
How many
pulls away.
GT3 cars can you fit in the space of 1.5 seconds? Well, here's an answer for you. Mark Farmer's running in 4th in the number 11 Aston Martin. Richard Neary tucked in behind. Then you've got the 31 Ferrari with the 21 Ferrari, Duncan Cameron, Rick Parfitt, and then Jack Mitchell, the car that started the first race from pole position. There it is, number 24 at the back of the pack. This is going to tighten right up. But yes, from 4th place down, they're not going for victory, but they're going for glory. That is all a lot of they're fighting for. 55 is off the circuit, back on the circuit. This was 2nd in class. That was Will Tregurtha.
Oh, look at that big attack on the rear.
Caught. That was
look, he shredded the rear bodywork. Then he come into the pit lane, and he knew he's going to continue. Now the car will lose, I would imagine, a significant amount of its aerodynamics, because now you've got nothing but what's happened? The car gone off directly and below the cameraman.
Well, was the damage? Was there a puncture from what happened before? We just saw that out on the side of the circuit, and that's Will Tregurtha. No follow-up victory for him in GT4. And car's off.
Nissan as well.
The 54 Nissan is off as well. So certainly we saw the 55 Ginetta running 2nd in the GT4 class have its problem run off the circuit. Didn't see what caused it, and then about nearly a minute later, suddenly straight off into the barriers.
Whether that was a punt or whether it was a failure, but whatever it was, and literally at the foot of the camera position, and you get an indication. There we go back to the battle. 31 for 7th and 8th position.
Okay, well, this is really, really tight. This is 4th place in the number 11 Aston Martin, but look how close it is between Rick Parfitt Jr. and Jack Mitchell. It's the tail end of the group. They're fighting over 8th place, and just in behind you can see Lee Mole in 9th in the number 30 Mercedes. He wants to get on the tail of this grouping. Very, very close indeed. But that was a very dramatic couple of moments, particularly for the 55 Ginetta. Battling over 4th, look how close it is. Farmer, Neary, Cameron and Parfitt. 1.2 seconds covering the lot of them, but we can see right behind Parfitt we've got Mitchell, so that caption could extend down to 8th place, covered by 2 seconds at a pinch.
Of these 3 cars, the Aston number 24 looks to me, Mitchell looks to me to have that little bit of extra straight line performance. Duncan Cameron and Rick Parfitt and the Bentley. Duncan Cameron and the Ferrari, Rick Parfitt the Bentley, but it's the Aston, and Duncan Cameron putting a bit defensive.
Drive-through penalty on timing screen just flashed up. 33 race leader, drive-through penalty. Now, what is that for? Is that for... Well, let's not guess. A short pit stop has to be the guess, but we saw them holding it. That, don't forget, had stayed stationary for 10 seconds longer than the standard. But in the first race, 0.1 of a second too quick. It was a 30-second penalty.
There was nothing obvious that we saw on circuit that would indicate that there was an infringement of regulation. Johnny Adam now looking and thinking, whoa! Suddenly we've got in the lead. We're in the lead of the race.
In the background, John Barnes walking around, and suddenly he's got Mark Farmer 4th on the circuit. That could elevate him to 3rd. We could have 2 TF Sport Aston Martin crews up on the podium. Because look, we're in the final 10 minutes of the race. So when will the 33 Lamborghini come in? Sitting on a lead of 3.6 seconds over that car, the number 1 Aston Martin of Derek Johnson. Don't get number 1 on the door without winning championships. And of course, last year's championship winning crew, Derek Johnson, would very much like to start winning again in this season.
The gap between 1st and 2nd on the last lap was only 3.6 seconds. So time lost for 33 is going to be substantial, and it's probably going to take it out of certainly the top 6. Yeah, she can't. No, she hasn't gone by.
No, not coming in this time.
Are they going to discuss it? Are they going to go up and appeal it? Or have they got the right of appeal?
We just saw the TF Sport garage. We saw team boss Tom Ferrier looking very happy indeed, laughing away. You know, they were pushing hard, and certainly Derek Johnson putting on a great performance, but you felt that there'd be just enough of an advantage for John Mitchell. Well, that should be Will Moore taking over from Matt Nicol-Jones.
And he's got the wipers going. Is the rain falling?
Maybe it's localised.
Or maybe did his hand hit the wiper switch?
Well, Richard Neary just lost ground, so Rick Parfitt's starting to pick his way up the order. Ironically, they could start working their way towards the podium in this race, because the car that's running 4th, which will be promoted to 3rd, is the next car in sight for Rick Parfitt. So in a meeting where they lost 4th and it became 7th in the first race, has the group behind them battle all over the place, suddenly Team Parker Racing might yet retrieve a podium from this meeting that looked as though it had left their office about 5 times with various incidents. Duncan Cameron also fancying his chance in the number 21 Ferrari from Spirit of Race, but he just lost a position last time around, and now he's lost another because Jack Mitchell has gone through.
And that, as I've suggested, the thought that the 24 Aston Martin of the 3 cars that were running together would be the one in an Aston. That's the car we saw. Still got his wipers going. Must be something mechanical, maybe electrical. So he's pulled off.
Okay, now
what
what happened in GT4, John? So we've got the Aston Martin's not part of it.
That's what we have.
Golly.
A lot of damage to the right front, and
so we had a
huge amount of damage to the right rear.
In front of the second place car. So 63 went for a spin.
No, it didn't. It got shunted up the back.
Got a shunt. Okay. Okay, let's see. This is 55. This is Will Tregertha.
Oh, he gets out of shape. Tags the back. And then watch the and bang and crash wall up. So
okay, I apologise to the Webster Chapman crew. Got back on the circuit,
yes, and
but
then it went straight
later in the lap.
Something went wrong. There may be something in the mechanics of the car, but that was suddenly a very rapid departure from the racetrack. Still staying on track.
Enjoying his afternoon. Trying to ignore the overhang of a drive-through penalty. Number 88 has also got a drive-through penalty, and that is Richard Neary. So Martin Short won't be too happy, running in 5th place overall. So that's another position that Rick Parfitt will advance in the 31 Bentley. There is the 31 Bentley now right on the tail of Mark Farmer, and this is effectively for 3rd position. Farmer hangs on in the 2nd of the TF Sport Aston Martins. Parfitt will have to find his moment. Still waiting for the race leader, John Minshaw, though, almost into the final 5 minutes to serve his drive-through penalty. He's sitting on a lead of 5 seconds over Derek Johnson's Aston Martin. Then comes Liam Griffin.
Rick Parfitt tries to dive down the inside, coming into the long Palmer corner. Certainly Bentley appears to have the legs of the Aston Martin, but of course,
and they're not that far behind Liam Griffin as well. Liam's only 1.5 seconds.
Rick Parfitt dives. He takes everything and runs wide over the grass. The splitter does the best bit of gardening you'll see here all weekend.
Yeah, but here comes the number 24 Aston Martin suddenly could gain position. Jack Mitchell fancying his chances. Let's see if there's much bodywork damage.
I don't think there's bodywork damage. I think he's just gone off and he's lost his momentum.
Yeah, so let's just clarify the green and black ABBA commercials, Richard Neary driven Mercedes, that's out of the mix. It's got to have a drive-through penalty. The moment of glory that could have been getting the Parfitt car overtaking under safety car was the drive-through penalty for them. So that's a double naughty. But we're still waiting for number 33, our race leader, to come in and serve its drive-through penalty. Or, if it doesn't serve it, I understand it'll just get 30 seconds added to its time after the race.
What is the lesser penalty coming in now?
I'll come in. He has.
Regardless.
So he's come in from a 5-second lead over Derek Johnson. Derek is sitting on a 13-second advantage over Liam Griffin. So you have to say it's victory on a plate for the Aston Martin that's going across the start-finish line right now. In the pit lane, you can see the driving through at the pit lane speed limit.
Liam Griffin coming down now.
Who is going to come past? How many places will he lose? Second place goes to the sister Barwell car. The second TF Aston Martin in 3rd. The Bentley, without too much mud hanging off the front, and they're right behind Jack Mitchell, down into 6th place. I think that makes it 4:33 with under 4 minutes to go. I'm afraid John Minshaw, he might catch the group ahead, but I can't really see he's going to gain many places. And the driver in the middle of your screen there, Johnny Adam, looking pensive, but it could be his afternoon here at Snetterton.
They've got an 8.9 second advantage over second place Liam Griffin in the Lamborghini. So there is the race leader under no pressure. 3.5 minutes of this race remaining. All he has to do, he's got a clear racetrack. There's nobody that looks as if they would be able to interfere with that. And this lap, one more, maybe 2 more laps, and they should take the checkered flag.
Well, so far this season, the number 1 Aston Martin crew started with a 3rd, followed by a 2nd in the 2 opening rounds at Alton Park. Went to Rockingham, only came home in 8th place. 5th place in this morning's race, and adding a win will suddenly change the complexion of their championship. So here is our race leader, Derek Johnson, the number 1 Aston Martin. You have to look some distance back. It was nearly 9 seconds on the start-finish line. Might come down a little bit. Liam Griffin, here he is, 2nd place in the number 6 Lamborghini. 3rd place, Mark Farmer in the 2nd of the Aston Martins, but he's got Rick Parfitt for company. We know Rick is very happy to attack. Then comes Jack Mitchell, Lee Mole, still right in behind Duncan Cameron. And of course, I've just missed someone out because we've got Minshaw in the mix there. Minshaw in 6th place in that 33 Lamborghini. Had been heading for victory. Would make it 4 wins out of 5 in this year's British GT Championship, but a little setback for them, a drive-through penalty. Black and white warning flag for
indeed.
car number 30, and that is Lee Mole. That is the AMD Tuning.com Mercedes at the back of the group. In the world of GT4, it's being led by number 100. There it is. Sandy Mitchell worked his way through very well in the space of half a lap. He went from 4th in class as they were all trying to get past David Patterson and moved into the lead for the Blackpool Garage 59 crew, sitting on an advantage of, 7 seconds over Alex Reid in the Lannan Racing. Ginetta, there you can see it, number 51, second in the GT4 class, so they've had a good haul of points here at Snetterton. Second in the first race, and look as they're going for second in the second race.
Seeing the Porsche Cayman first time, I think we've seen it probably throughout the weekend.
Yeah, it's sort of normally in the background, doesn't yet have the pace, but in lots of European championships, the Cayman is very much one of the top cars.
There's a battle for position.
How close?
The Bentley and the Aston Martin, you can't really get much closer than that as they come through the quick flick at Hamilton.
Now, what we've seen before, John, is that the Aston Martin seems to be very grunty out of the corners. It seems to have lots of poke. And then where the Bentley suffers is down the longer straights. Doesn't have the straight line speed down the Bentley straight, most ironically. Certainly more speed than the sister car that came to a halt and had to be pulled clear pretty much at the point they're approaching now. That is out of the mix. But Farmer looks like he's got just enough space behind him that he should be able to hold on to third place. 4th being held down by Rick Parfitt. Jack Mitchell really pushing, and John Minshaw can do nothing about them.
One more lap after this. So they'll get across the start-finish line before the clock counts down. The 1 hour is complete.
Well, such were their points advantage before this race that Minshaw and Keane will not be toppled from the championship lead. They were sitting on an advantage of 27.5 points, 25 points for a victory. They're guaranteed to still be ahead, but very frustrating for the duo. Now, will Mark Farmer hold on to third place overall, because Rick Parfitt in the Bentley really fancies making a move and trying to just set the fastest lap of the race. If John Mitchell, I had to breathe in very deeply there, John, because at Rich's, it was a half dive, didn't quite work, and now the momentum's with Jack Mitchell and the Aston Martin as they go up to Wilson. He's on the outside line. I think he's going to take... what's he going to do? He's running out of options. And John Minshaw, fastest lap of the race last time around, thinking, well, it's the last roll of the dice. What can I do? Keep it on the island, gentlemen.
I'll tell you what he can do. He's got the opportunity to make up 2 places on this final lap, because the Aston Martin and the Bentley are trying to beat each other up. And so there is...
Well, it looks though it's stationary in the top 3 positions. You can't guarantee who's going to hold on to 4th, but it looks as though, having got in out of the corner before Hamilton, which is Agostini in 4th place, it looks like the Bentley is safe there, but the top 3, I would suggest, Johnston, Liam Griffin and Mark Farmer. Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Aston Martin will be staying in that position to the end, but now, halfway around the final lap, John Minshaw is still far from finish, soaring away at the tail of Jack Mitchell, who's doing all he can to put the pressure on Rick Parfitt's Bentley. Down the Bentley straight for the final time, but you can see the Aston Martin pulling away from the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini not the best thing in a straight line, very, very handy around the twisty infield part of the circuit. There is Mark Farmer's Aston Martin in 3rd position, making a little dummy move. Minshaw down into Brundle, into Nelson they go. It's still the 24 Aston Martin holding on to that 5th place. Right in front is 4th, right in front of that is Mark Farmer in 3rd. Some second and a bit clear of them in 2nd place is Liam Griffin, but leading the race is Derek Johnson, the number 1 Aston Martin. He's past pit entry, he's come round the kink onto the start-finish straight. So victory for the TF Sport Aston Martin number 1. Johnny Adam up on the pit wall, enjoying that very much indeed. In fact, relatively comfortable at the end with the 33, having that drive-through penalty because it left victory by just waiting 9 seconds over Liam Griffin, and Mark Farmer just enough to make it 2 Aston Martins from the TF Sport crew in the top 3 positions. Then came Rick Parfitt in the Bentley, Jack Mitchell in the Aston Martin, John Minshaw in the car that came in from the lead for that drive-through penalty, the 33 Lamborghini. Leading the way in GT4 though is Sandy Mitchell, the 100 McLaren, sitting on quite a comfortable lead over Alex Reid and the Lannan Racing Ginetta, and then 3rd in the class will go the way of David Patterson, who took over the Tolman Motorsport McLaren from Joe Osborne. And here, half a lap to go, the checkered flag is out, but victory in the GT4 class, well deserved. It's good to see the McLarens starting to hit their straps in that class.
I know that the winning car, the number 1 Aston Martin of Johnny Adam and Derek Johnson, have taken victory, but you know what? The satisfaction they get would have been greater if they'd been able to beat the 33 Lamborghini. Of course, it had to serve a penalty. And that's, you've got to be assuming that there was an infringement in the pit lane. We haven't got confirmation that that was the reason for the drive-through penalty. But, those little details hurt. You can't believe you've done all the hard yards and then just one little moment can give you the drive-through penalty. particularly coming to the end of a race where you've got no options other than just to go as hard as you can.
Well, there was Alex Reid crossing second place in class, nearly 12 seconds down on Sandy Mitchell, and David Patterson will complete the job for the 56 McLaren crew. That's from Tolman Motorsport. So another enthralling race, another race with more twists than you could possibly imagine. But for Derek Johnson, as you say, he would have liked to try and take the race to John Minshaw in the closing stages of the race. He wasn't so far behind, but then the drive-through penalty was issued for the 33 Lamborghini, and the dream of 4 wins from 5 starts in the 27 British GT Championship come to naught because Minshaw ended up in 6th place overall. Still will lead the championship with Phil Keane, but for those behind, they've had a useful fillip in the points, and there is the race-winning car. Derek Johnson bringing it back in, and I'm sure Johnny Adam will be very quickly up to Parc Fermé to greet him.
So satisfactory day's work for the TF Racing Aston Martin, or TF Sport Aston Martin.
Yeah, well, they were 5th and 10th in the first race, so that's definitely an improvement to go to 1st and 3rd. Derek Johnson climbing out. Some of the regular photo crews down there. But it's been, you know, for a lot of these drivers, it would have been quite a warm day's action here at Snetterton, and certainly some of the racing action meant they didn't have a moment to spend time idling away their Sunday afternoons.
No, there are a couple of parts in the circuit where you get a chance to catch your breath, but certainly the infield part of the Snetterton circuit, now that's almost 3 miles in length, is a lot of work, a lot of concentration, and easy to make a mistake, easy to get slightly outmaneuvered as Liam Griffin climbs out of the 2nd place Lamborghini.
And you know, for all of these drivers with the championship leading crew only finishing 6th in the race, it gave them a chance to assuage that points disadvantage. But let's go down and join Gary Champion, who is down with our race winners, with Derek Johnson and Johnny Adam, who kicked off at the start of the race.
Well, Derek's taking a deserved drink as well. Well done, congratulations. That is what you needed this year.
Oh, for sure. We've struggled really. Well, Alton Park was good for us, but the qualifying wasn't, but the race was in the wet. So we're good in the wet, but we struggled at Rockingham, and we struggled all weekend here. And we've been changing the car from one end to the other, and then we just went radical again for that race, and it's obviously worked. So, you know, it's took us till the very end to find it, and then we've shown what we've really got.
Okay. You could have stayed out a bit longer. You didn't. So clearly there was confidence in this bloke.
Yeah, no, he's champion. You know, that's why he's in the car early. But yeah, no, the car was good there. We've done a lot of changes over this weekend, trying to get to the bottom of what was a small issue, and nice to get another win. You know, we've waited since May last year to get a victory, and hopefully our championship comeback starts now.
Can I just ask a little bit of a downer question? Does it make any difference, the fact that Minshaw got that penalty, and you know it brings him into to the pit lane? Sorry.
Ah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it closes the championship up a little bit, which is, you know, what everybody wants to see. But yeah, I mean, they were running away with it a little bit, so, you know, in racing everything turns, doesn't it? So it was just really keep our cool and keep it together, and really hope something would happen. And, you know, we were maybe gifted a win there, but we drove hard for it.
Great. Guys, thank you and congratulations. Bruce Jones, then, back to you from down here in the winner's circle.
Thank you very much, Gary, and let's take a look at some highlights. Hard to know where to start because it was action-packed right from the drag to the first corner. And if you look in the background, you'll suddenly see the Ferrari being put into pit exit from Seb Morris coming across in their number 31 Bentley. They lost ground, then we had a spin from the 24 McLaren, managed to miss everyone and everything, went down to the back, drive-through penalty for 31 for the avoidable incident, it was adjudged. And in the course of the highlights, we then have a problem with the number 7 Bentley and a bit of a collision. You can see the bodywork rubbing, and it, I'm afraid, wasn't the last of collisions during the race. But then in the world of Aston Martin, there was a delay. That was the number 1 car that should have been coming out pretty much equal with the 33 Lamborghini, but with that car behind it, you can see him coming out of about 3 or 4 seconds down behind.
Just wonder, did the 33 car clip the solid white line before it exited the pit lane? Just noticing that now, that might be the issue that they've been penalised for.
Well, we were coming to that later in the race, because running away in the lead of the race was John Minshaw having taken over, but then there was a pit stop infringement. I think eagle-eyed John Watson has just picked it out, and that led to a drive-through penalty. That cost victory, and then there was a big collision between the 55 Ginetta with Will Tregurtha at the wheel. Here's another replay, and he gets into the side of the 63 car, gets a little bit airborne, and then later in the lap he recovered this and got back onto the circuit, and we didn't see what happened or why it happened, but something must have broken, presumably as a result of that first collision. and off and out of the running for the 55 Ginetta crew. And then it got very tight up the back. The 62 Aston Martin being given a bit of a biff there. Kept out of the way, and then it was super tight. And that was the moment where Rick Parfitt got past Mark Farmer, but unfortunately didn't have enough braking, couldn't get round the corner and lost ground. And then more ground was lost, of course, by the drive-through penalty for the 33 Lamborghini. It came back out into 6th place, set the fastest lap, closed up, but could do nothing about victory going to the number 1 Aston Martin crew. Started by Johnny Adam and brought home by Derek Johnson. So clear skies, but let's take a look at the results. It was Aston Martin's first and third, with Derek Johnson bringing it home for a victory of nearly 10 seconds over Liam Griffin, so 2 good results for the number 6 Lamborghini crew. Farmer and Barnes recovering their season a bit with that 3rd place. Rick Parfitt and Morris, they gained some points there. It looks gone all the way. One thing I'd like to just point out is the fact that AM honours went to Neary and Short, Richard Neary and Martin Short in 9th place overall, so well done them. Our winner of GT4 in 10th place overall, that was Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty. Had to work very hard, but had one wonder lap when they gained position. Of course, we lost the 55 Ginetta, but that left the 51 crew of Reed and Pittard to take 2nd in class, and David Patterson and Joe Osborne 3rd in GT4, and certainly the top AM crew in that class. Super competitive class. Advantage Mclaren this afternoon, but the Ginetta showing very strongly again. 20 odd finishers, 26 starters, but we're getting the first few drivers up. John Barnes and Mark Farmer, 3rd place overall in the number 11 Aston Martin for TF Sport, so they'll have enjoyed that. Up into 2nd place, it's Sam Taldoff and the taller driver Liam Griffin coming on first. And then winners this afternoon, Johnny Adam and Derek Johnson. Derek first up, hugs his teammates, and there's Johnny Adam. Many a win for Aston Martin, but obviously they have number 1 on their door, and it was number 1 on the result sheet. Victory here in the 2 rounds, second of the 2 rounds at Snetterton. Martin Short and Richard Neary coming up, having taken 9th place overall, but more importantly as top AM finishers. So they pick up their 2nd trophies of the day in the AM class. And the 2 Aston Martin crews, and of course one of the 2 Lamborghini crews from Barwell Motorsport taking that 2nd place. But it was advantage Aston Martin to Derek Johnson and Johnny Adam. Smiles all round on the top step of the podium. An enthralling race. Incident left, right and centre, John Watson, kept us on our toes.
Yes, I mean it was an action-packed race all the way through, and certainly entertaining, but of course disappointing for the 33 car for whatever the infringement that they incurred. It was a drive-through. Nevertheless, good to see another team winning, and you don't really want for any championship to have one manufacturer or one team being dominant, but it is a hard luck story, and no doubt John Minshaw and Phil Keane will feel, well, 6th place, we could have had this victory. It was well within our grasp.
They could have done, but we've had 3 circuits visited. Lamborghini won the action at Alton Park. Bentley came away ahead of Ferrari at the 2nd circuit visited, which was Rockingham. Then we had a Lamborghini and an Aston Martin win here, so plenty of variety. But you have to say, things change from circuit to circuit. Who's going to have the advantage? We certainly feel that Lamborghini were really good around the tight twist here, but the next race is Silverstone. It could change all over again.
Bruce, it's a fact of life. Right now, the Lamborghini Huracan is a pretty good race car, whether it is in the hands of Barwell Motorsport and British GT or in Grasser Racing and Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Championships. It is a super car.
It certainly is. They're having the season of seasons, and Lamborghini, the number of racing cars they've sold over the past couple of seasons has been phenomenal. Having just come back from Blancpain GT Series Asia racing, the grids there are packed with Lamborghinis as well, so it's been a real success for the lot from Santa Gata. Now we're looking at the drivers going up onto the podium in GT4 class. Joe Osborne on the right, and the biggest smile will be with David Patterson on the left-hand side of the circuit. Didn't start his racing until his mid-50s, so getting up on the podium with these young pros is fantastic for him. 2nd place, the Lannan Racing crew again. Alex Reed leading out, David Pittard, the taller of the 2, on the left-hand side. And let's welcome to the podium, it will be victors this time out, Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty up onto the top step of the podium for the Black Bull Garage 59 crew. Victory for McLaren.
First of all, on 3rd place, pairing of David Patterson and Joe Osborne with their trophies. First podium
So don't forget, David Patterson writes a very entertaining driver column on dailysportscar.com about what it is to take to racing late in life, and I think this will be one of his highlights so far, so I'm sure that will be up in the next week or so. But right now, just enjoy the sunshine at Snetterton. It's been a great day of racing, 2 1-hour races, thoroughly enthralling, John. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, very much so. I think the 1-hour format is such a good format because it's action all the way. When you get into the longer, the 2 or the 3-hour races, while they are still in effect a sprint format, but these 1-hour races I really enjoy because first of all, they go so quickly, and if we're seeing it go quickly, hopefully the audiences at home watching this are enjoying it every bit as much as we are.
Well, I think we caught some amazing action around the circuit here at Snetterton. Plenty of action at pretty much every corner of the circuit. We weren't too sure about the format of the middle part of the circuit, but around corners like Palmer in particular, it provided some really exciting racing action. But the move of the day still was around the outside.
Yeah, no, that was.
Now, I've just heard whisper, 1/10 of a second was the pit stop infringement in the first race for the Bentley crew. 2/10 of a second was the infringement, so it wasn't driving over the white line. Worth looking, John.
He clipped it, but that wasn't the issue. It was obviously clearly that small amount of time, 1/10 in the case of the Bentley in the first race this morning, 1/5 of a second then for the 33 Lamborghini.
And you can see the damage it does.
The margins are so minor. Everybody knows they run to the the limits of what is permitted. You just got to be cautious and be slightly, careful, and not just give the guy the message to go.
Yes, and you do wonder, particularly having had the infringement in the first race, that everyone wasn't just saying, let's just build half a second in or a second in. But anyhow, these things happen, but you certainly feel that Minshaw and Keane will live to fight another day. 6 this afternoon. Minshaw picked up the fastest lap of the race. I've just noticed a thing on the screen. A 5-second penalty will be added to the time of Lee Mole and Ryan Ratcliffe. That won't really affect their position too much outside the top 6. But let's go down to the winners of the GT4 class. Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty. Will catch them sometime soon, but they had put on an astonishingly good performance, particularly in one lap. Let's hear all about it. They're down with Gary Champion.
Wow, look at that. Silverware, champagne. Couldn't be better, could it?
No, definitely. What a race. Plenty of action, a lot of overtaking. Came out in P4 after all the pit stops and everything, and yeah, really pushed on and did some great moves. I was a bit lucky with Will diving up the inside, and I just managed to cut back on the inside and get the move done. So yeah, big thanks to the team. They've put in a lot of hard work this weekend because those Ginettas have definitely been fast. So yeah, really happy with that.
Great, good, well done. Congratulations, well done.
Thank you very much, Gary. Just like to point out that was Sandy Mitchell, aged 17.
17?
What a car to be driving at that age.
I just got out of my BMW Isetta at 17.
I got off my moped.
A three-wheel version, not the four-wheel version.
Ah, okay. So, enthralling action. It's not over. It is over as far as the British GT Championship here at Snetterton. We may gather another interview or so, but of course we've still got racing on the agenda, and we're going to be waiting for the mini challenge. They will be out very soon indeed, but you can see the face of the drivers. It was quite hot afternoon's racing, and some of the spectators appear to have just melted on the banking, but you can never guarantee a May bank holiday what sort of weather you're going to get. Rain was predicted, but it looks like it stayed away for another day.
Bank holiday actually is tomorrow. This is just bank holiday Sunday, but it has been a glorious day all day at Snetterton, and the fans have been enjoying it. They've been picnicking and you're probably imbibing and beaming. So it's been altogether happy day for everybody.
It certainly has.
Except the 33.
Except the 33, and you could say except the 31. They had the penalty in the first race, but they came away 7th in the first race and 4th in the second for Rick Parfitt Jr. and Seb Morris. But it's a question of what might have been in many circumstances. But some great drives here at Snetterton, and I think the British GT Championship continues to go from strength to strength, but certainly when you look at the racing action in the GT4 class, it's every bit as good as it is at the front end.
The one thing I do hope is that this British GT Championship remains in a way as sporting as it is, and doesn't go down the route of what we've seen in touring cars, where it is almost a form of WW, World Wrestling, whatever. Too much contact is not what I consider motor racing.
Absolutely so. There was a little bit of contact here, but it wasn't sort of intentional contact. It was just force of circumstance, certainly away from the grid. It got a bit close between the 31 Bentley with Seb Morris at the wheel and And in the hands of Matt Griffin, the 21 Ferrari had to vault into the pit lane to keep out of the way. But we got away with that. Drive-through penalty issued for 31, and that left them eventually finishing fourth. Could have made it to the podium, but Rick Parfitt's little dive to try and get third place off Mark Farmer didn't quite pay off. But generally, very good, clean racing. Really enjoyed by the fans out around the circuit here in Norfolk. And, of course, they've got much more racing action to come. We've still got the mini race to follow, and they've got a Ginetta race at the end of the day. But they really do need to start moving on. Still see some people putting some sun cream on at lunchtime. I noticed some people maybe should have done that this morning.
Yeah, you know, sitting out, you don't necessarily feel it, but it's not just the temperature, it's just the UV is the thing that you've got to be careful of, and things, ankles, any joint, anything that's flexible, you get sunburn on that. It is agony.
Aha!
There we go.
Minis come out to race. So, John Watson, I bid you farewell. Thank you very much for joining me in the commentary box. And we'll be commentating together again soon. But right now it's me on my own with the Minis as they come out. Really great race earlier today. Brett Smith beating his father, Jeff Smith. David Grady keeping them really honest and very tight. One of the best performances came from the number 51, which was Freddie Lee. Finished 6th. And he's at the sharp end of the grid. Look out of my window, it's such a sharp end. He's on pole position. Alongside he's got Max Blade, and what we had is the top finishers reversed, the top 6 flipped around. And we have a couple of camera cars. They seem to catch all the action in the opening race. Opening race of 2 today, but they had 1 yesterday for good measure as well, just to get their eye in around the circuit. Camera cars before were carried by Dean Brace in number 32 and Carl Reed. And we've got 32 again, that's Dean Brace riding on with Dean right there, and Carl Reed on car number 20. Carried the second of our cameras, and certainly there was action at pretty much every corner, and they were in the thick of it. But Freddie Lee in the Power Maxed Racing entry on pole position. Mark Wakefield finished 4th this morning. We'll be starting from 3rd on the grid. David Grady will be in the mix as well, starting in 4th place. And then come to 2 Smiths. Jeff in number 55 and number 39 back in 6th place. Won the race earlier today, Brett Smith, son of Jeff. Jeff does this for fun. He races in the British Touring Car Championship for business, if you will. But they bring some of their sponsors along here, and mini racing in the Mini Challenge, always so popular. And certainly it's very hard if you're a TV director to know where to look next, because the action really comes at you from all angles. But right now, Freddie Lee in pole position, number 51. Number 11, Max Bladen alongside in the BizKarts entry. As you can see, conditions absolutely perfect here at Snetterton. Lots of people wandering around in shorts and t-shirts. See the heat haze on that long shot as we look down towards Freddie Lee. Green flag waved on the starting gantry, and off they go on their formation lap. So it's Freddie Lee, Max Bladen, Mark Wakefield, David Grady slow away from the grid, Jeff Smith, Brett Smith, James Turkington, brother of touring car racer Colin Turkington, double champion, and George Sutton. Watch out for him. He seems to be the action magnet in the first racer. The racer from Market Drayton in number 444. And a few places further back, 2 places, then comes Rob Smith, then Charlie Butler Henderson. Watch for him. He was the inaugural champion. He's in number 15, just going out of your screen, white with the broad, bright yellow stripes on the car. He won the championship in 2015 when this championship was launched. So Freddie Lee on pole position in 51 from Max Bladen, Mark Wakefield and David Grady. 18 and 1 share row 2. The Smiths, father and son, Jeff 55 and Brett 39. That's not their ages. James Turkington, George Sutton, Rob Smith, 3 Smiths in the top 9, and then Charlie Butler Henderson. Charlie will have to keep a move on because his sister is starting 10 places behind him. Vicky hasn't had any races for 2 years and is back on board this weekend. She should have finished higher in the first race, got pushed wide and lost a few positions. Expect her to work forward in car number 52. And Henry Neal, look for him too, because one of the Neal brothers got taken out at the start of the last race, and that's Will, who's going to be starting down in 28th. He's got it all to do, but for his brother Henry starting 11th, there's more chance of a finish in the points. So it's been an enthralling couple of days of qualifying and racing. Right now, riding around car number 32, Dean Brace. What action is he going to bring us in this race? Well, every driver out there is guaranteed some form of action, but Dean seemed to see an awful lot of it, and quite a lot of it happened into the Wilson hairpin, and then as they came back out again and charged down towards Palmer. This is the twisty infield section. They've just gone through Hamilton there, onto Oggies. This is further back down the field with Kyle Reid towards the tail of the pack. There come the two Smiths. Jeff ahead of Brett. Brett hadn't won in this championship till this weekend. The field needs to bunch up a little bit. The gap's opening out. Need them closest together as possible for when they get back round to the grid. Plenty of runners. We had 28 cars starting the race this morning. Most of them finished. 24 of them finished. Lost a couple on the first lap. In fact, sorry, that was the restart. But we saw before the previous race there might be what we call weather on its way. To our west, that is the view to the west. It's bunching up. I think I might put the roof up on the car on the way home. But the weather was coming from the east earlier, looking a bit feisty. I think we'll get through this race before it's a 20-minute race. Well, not everyone's going to get through because Charlie Butler-Henderson has obviously not packed an umbrella and he's pulled off in a panic. So that was due to be starting 10th on the grid, but whatever the problem is for Charlie, it looks terminal for his race. Now, where has he parked that car? Quite a long way from the circuit. I think we might need more than two people to give it a push, though. So we've got a big bank in the background. So it's... Oh, if it's Palmer, we're now looking... Oh, he's just turned onto the Bentley straight. So he's come through Williams. He's got onto the start. There's Williams. I like it when they name the corners with a big board. So he's just got up to the start of the Bentley straight, and he's just giving those marshals. They haven't had a long enough day yet. He's given them a chance to do a bit of physical. So I don't know what the problem is there, but I'm sure it's a threepenny piece bit that has broken, but hugely frustrating for Charlie, who was wanting to start bagging some points this weekend. He started the first race after a problem in qualifying down in 26th place, got up to 10th place, started the second race from 10th, finished it in 10th, having hoped to go forward. He gained positions and then lost a few, and then he's not gained any positions at all. Now riding through Murray there. Murray's the final corner of the lap. Freddie Lee coming round onto pole position. Max Bladen tucked in alongside. Bladen on the right, the blue car with the white stripe up the middle. David Grady and Mark Wakefield on the second row, or more to the point, David Grady on the outside and Mark Wakefield on the inside. That's better. Freddie Lee adjusts it so his wheels aren't ahead of the start-finish line. Charlie Henderson does what racing drivers do and shake of the head, look back at the car. You know there's a problem, and looking at it from a distance isn't going to change it. You can see the gap on the fifth row that Charlie has left. But right now he's out of the race. The waved yellow flags, waiting for the final cars to gather into their positions on the grid. And the Power Maxed entry of Freddie Lee on pole position. Round 7 of the championship. Me, Bruce Jones, leading you through hopefully to the end of the race, 20 minutes. And if it's as incredibly action-packed as the previous two, is going to be one to enjoy. So full grid of minis for the mini challenge, with JCW waiting for the lights to go on the gantry. They are on. The 3 red lights, they're out, and a very good start from Max Bladen from the outside of the front row. Behind it looks fairly even. David Grady getting in the mix, but Freddie Lee somehow has kept ahead of Max Bladen. You can hardly see Bladen's car tucked in behind her. One of the Smiths has got right into the mix, has gained a place or two. In fact, a whole row has been passed by, I think it could have been Brett Smith, son of Jeff. But let's see, down to Wilson. So they go, well, Bladen made a great start, but it's Jeff Smith, I think, around the outside. Is it 55? Yes, it is. So it's Father Smith. Now, Father Smith has gone onto the dirt, given a bit of a shove by Freddie Lee. Lee holds on to second place, but for Jeff Smith, with that amazing start, he's now back down into 5th position, which is exactly where he started. So there he made a challenge for the lead. It went wrong. Looked like a move for second place. That went even more wrong. And back down the order he goes. But Max Bladen leading the way. Freddie Lee in second place, or is he? Yes, he is, doing just enough into Palmer's to resist number 18, which is Mark Wakefield, and the rest of the pack absolutely has won. 2 abreast, 3 abreast as they go through Palmer's, kick up the dirt. But at the moment it's Freddie Lee cocking a wheel and getting the tail, wagging the dog almost as Wakefield gets right onto his tail. That's the battle for second place. Just out front is Max Bladen. Waved yellow flags, and that's obviously because of Charlie Butler-Henderson's car's being parked. A mistake from Freddie Lee, and Wakefield says thank you very much, but what colour was that flag being waved? It was waved yellow, so that might have to be handed back. I think it was a mistake anyhow from Freddie Lee, but the move was made, and that will have to hand back. David Grady, the number 1 mini, tucking right in behind Jeff Smith in the 55-38 car. of Brett Smith, the winner of the first race today, getting a shove from his father as they go into the S's. All's fair out on the circuit, and David Grady seems to have lost 2 or 3 places. Number 61, James Turkington, making an attack. This is super close. David Grady looks like he got up into 3rd place. He's now down in about 6th. So at the end of the opening lap, it's not poleman Freddie Lee who's going to come round in the lead of the race. Let's see what Carl Reid can do. Can he make a move through Coram? Not always the easiest place, and what follows when you get to the end of this super long right-hander is Murray's always lost a place in comparison. There's number 88, Reece Barr. He must have been having a problem on the opening lap. He should have been up towards the front end. No, of course it wasn't. He started at the back because he retired in the previous race. So Max Bladen coming across the line ahead of Mark Wakefield, 1.4 seconds. Then it's super close behind. Brett Smith, Lee, Jeff Smith, Rob Smith. 3 Smiths in the top 6. That's going to keep me on my toes. But Freddie Lee was the driver who lost the most. Yes, we may yet have a complaint about overtaking under waved yellows. Let's all lock up into Wilson. No, if you're leading the race and you're Max Bladen, let's spin and then sit in the middle of the track and hope nobody hits him. Oh my God, he hits Wilson, he goes. That's how you lose 20 positions. And he was 1.4 seconds clear, and I think you can safely say he blew it all on his own in the lead of the race. Now, Max Bladen, you're going to be kicking yourself for that, but let's see the recovery drive come our way. Well done, everybody, for missing him, as they were 2 abreast as they're coming up to Wilson. They somehow managed to go either side. Sitting perpendicular to the accident was Max Bladen. That would have been a big nervous moment for Bladen. He's got away with it, but he's lost a lot of positions. 21 in the heart of the action back there. Haven't seen so much of Mohammed Nalwala, Indian racer. But really up the front end, the action is going on because Freddie Lee is fighting back against Mark Wakefield, so they've changed positions again. So Freddie up into 2nd place overall. Leading the race, though, should be Brett Smith. There's Jeff Smith. We saw him give Brett a clunk up the back. Rob Smith in 37 is behind in the blue and green Mini and carrying a lot of speed. Battle for 4th place in the Evergreen Mini. Up the inside, looks so the place should be his, but you don't have to tell Jeff Smith that because he's going to do everything to stop it from happening. Into the old S's they go under the bridge. Lock up, go straight on, take car off. No, somehow they've managed to get enough braking done to get around the corner, but look how close it is. This is the battle from about 8th place down to about 15th, covered by, what, should we call it a 2nd? Turkington running in fact in that 8th place, being pushed very hard indeed by George Sutton in 4.44. 15 minutes of this 20-minute race remaining. We've had so much action so far. Can't wait to see a replay of the start because it certainly went very well indeed for those at the very front of the grid, and for Brett Smith it came very good indeed, and the 39 Brett Smith will be leading them across the start-finish line. What will his advantage be? He was 3rd at the start of the previous lap. He's got an advantage of 1.7 seconds. What a lap it's been for him over Freddie Lee, Mark Wakefield, Jeff Smith, Rob Smith, James Turkington, and then George Sutton. Now we're riding on board with Brace, number 32. He's in 12th position. 42 just in front of him, skitting around, and that's Henry Neal. Started 11th, is running 11th, and being pushed very hard indeed by Brace and diving up the inside of 21. Looks like that's going to be a good deal up the inside of Nalwala. Works very well indeed, so not such a great corner at Wilson for Nalwala. Positions lost by the 21 Mini. Wheels cocked as they go through Palmer. Nalwala putting our cameraman, or camera car, Brace onto the grass on the outside, manages to keep it all under control. Into Hamilton, this halfway between the kink and the corner. And Neil running a little bit wide there, but it's all right, he's still ahead of Nalwala. Brace tucked in behind. Brace carrying the great big Union flag on the side, the Mintec sponsorship on number 32. Fastest lap of the race, no surprise, set by our race leader, Brett Smith. The action behind super tight of Furious. This is battling for 10th place. 10th place in the hands of number 42 at the moment, Henry Neal. How much longer he'll keep it? Will he advance? Will he lose ground? We will see, but you can be sure there's going to be amazing amount of racing. 14 minutes remaining in this race. 1.7 seconds was a gap between number 39 leading the way and Freddie Lee. Freddie Lee holding on to 2nd place, and all along that is helping our race leader Brett Smith, because Mark Wakefield doing his utmost to get back ahead of Freddie Lee, but Freddie's been on fighting form in this race. He passed him earlier, and then Freddie went back up. And Rob Smith, I fancy, is a driver who would be starting to make the moves in this race. He's not in the yellow car. He's the he's running in 4th position now. He's got past Jeff Smith, so the blue, green, and white Mini number 37, very strong at form at Rockingham, is going better and better, and I think actually he's the quick one in this quartet, and I reckon he could match the speed of Brett Smith, who's leading the race outright, but Brett is racing on his own, and all those behind him. Well, it was 1.7 seconds down last time. I'm sure that's gone out this lap. A new fastest lap of the race set by Brett Smith. It's gone out to, wait for it. Where's the interval? 3.1 seconds. So yes, 1.4 seconds gain. Oh, and Freddie Lee has made a mistake. Has he got a puncture or something? Yeah, he's suddenly lost position, and certainly Mark Wakefield and Rob Smith didn't wait for a second invitation. So Freddie Lee off. It wasn't just power, but anyhow, what we're seeing now is Rob Smith. Well, it doesn't matter who loses position. There's always someone else gaining on them from behind and closing on in. But so for Freddie Lee, second place is now history. Off the circuit, down and Riches. Don't know if he's been able to get back on and replay. 3 abreast. Would you like 3 abreast? We can do you 3 abreast. So Kyle Reid getting to watch the action up in front of him. Number 17 trying to pick up position. 17 is Brad Hutchinson from Halifax. Typical corner, tight corner, locked up brakes. George Sutton getting one wheel well off the turf in the 444. Sometimes being on the outside of the corner is the safest place to be when you're going in 2 or 3 abreast, but trying to get the gear changes complete. These turbocharged minis, plenty of poke, and they fill a lot of the track. You can position them, but they're relatively large cars on a relatively narrow track, and that makes 3 abreast not always the best option, but they're always prepared to have a go. 35 getting a little bit loose over the curbing there. Chris Fire from Oxford bouncing around. Entered by Oct4 Racing. Carl Reid getting to have a look at it. Car number 20, there is Carl Reid carrying one of the 2 onboard cameras. He's got action in front, action behind. Max Bladen, let's keep an eye on him. He's got his way back to 14th place. Don't forget he was leading the race, number 11 leading the race by about almost getting off for 2 seconds, seemed to have it all under control, and then had a spin on the approach to Wilson and sat sideways across the track while the next 20 cars snaked their way around him, and then regaining his breath and his heartbeat probably off the clock, got back into the race and is picking his way up. And in fact Carl Reid is he's got past Carl Reid already, and he's gaining positions hand over fist. So Bladen's got it all to do, but the clock is going to be his enemy in this race when you lose that many positions. If you want points, you've got to be in the top 10. So he's got more places to gain. But right now, Brett Smith leading the way, 3.5 seconds clear of Mark Wakefield. Rob Smith, as we saw, up into 3rd place. Jeff Smith in 4th, and James Turkington and David Grady. That's the top 6. Car 52, Vicky Butler-Henderson, has she gained a place? Yes, she has. Another place gained up to 21st position. She started in 20th, so she would have had a little mishap or 2 in the early laps of the race, but she's picking her way forward, and her next target could yet come on the next lap. So it's good to have the racer turned TV journalist turned racer all over again back out on the circuit. And for her brother Charlie, no race this afternoon because he pulled off on the formation lap. Car number 1, David Grady, hasn't been the best of races for him, but there he is in 6th position. Time aplenty. He got a bit out-muscled, having had a very good couple of laps early on. And he's trying to see what he can do about those ahead of him, but the performance is so equal. But David Grady there in number 1. Next driver up behind him, George Sutton in 444. And then number 29, Stuart Goff, all trying to see where they can make a move. But right now, for David Grady, he's just looking at the back of James Turkington's car, trying to size up where Turkington is strong and where Turkington might have a possible weakness, and see if he'll be able to make a pounce. But number 18, Wakefield in 2nd place, but he knows he's got a lot of pressure from Rob Smith. Car number 29, that's in the action as well. That's Goff, we just mentioned him, Stuart Goff there, seeing if he can pick his way past George Sutton in the 444. The Moorgate car, trying to stay on the black stuff as much as possible. You see these minis getting out towards the edge of the circuit, using the curbs a bit. Of course, they've got a fair bit of suspension travel, but it does upset them somewhat. They cock the rear wheel, inside rear wheel on corners, particularly there at Palmer. And again later in the lap at Hamilton they do it as well. Now is this a pass coming up, number 42 being shaped out. That's Henry Neal. He's got King really pushing very hard indeed. Callum King from Aberdeen. Neil on the outside, King on the inside. Which of those crossed the start-finish line ahead? Your guess is as good as mine. It was Callum King by 16 one-thousandths of a second. So can he make the move stick when he goes up to Riches? He's left Neil on the outside, but Neil isn't backing off, and those behind might gain a bit of an advantage. And in fact, the next car up is number 88, which is Rhys Barr. Started at the very tail of the grid, having retired in the first race in the Sutil. And the silly liveried number 88. So there's Rhys Barr picking his way up in the 88. He was very strong at Rockingham, got right up at the front end. This time he started right down at the back, and he's just discovering what life is like in the midfield as he picks his way through it. But leading the race at the moment, Brett Smith by 3.7 seconds, and that's what happens when you push a little too deep in the corner. And number 45 got it wrong there. That was Callum King. He was just behaving very well a short while ago, but that would have cost him a position or two in his battle with Henry Neal. So just outside the top 10, and certainly not lifting off in their attack, nor is Rob Smith in number 37. He's really putting the pressure on Mark Wakefield. He's on the podium if he finishes as he is, but he fancied another step higher. Brett Smith leading the race, Mark Wakefield, Rob Smith, and then Brett's father, Jeff Smith, in fourth place. You can see him in number 55. Then a tiny bit of a gap, and then James Turkington, and then sixth place, David Grady in the number 1 Mini. There's Grady in the back of that shot. There's second, third and fourth. Rob Smith, the meat in the sandwich. Now Jeff Smith seems to have suddenly come back awake, and he's trying to put the pressure. A better exit for Jeff Smith, but did he get too close and have to slightly come off the power as they exited Murray's? And it looks as though actually in that little grouping, Mark Wakefield had the best exit onto the start-finish straight. Rob Smith not able to challenge, but actually catching the slipstream, able to close a little bit, not close enough to make a look up the inside, or even consider making a move as they get to Riches. And a better run through the first corner of the lap from Jeff Smith in fourth place. Looked up the inside, has to go the outside line. Rob Smith's got just too much experience to leave the door open. And James Turkington has been able, in that little dicing incident, to get closer to the two of them. And David Grady, last year's champion, right onto his tail in number 1. Second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth covered by 2 seconds, but our race leader 4.5 seconds clear. There it is, 4.593 seconds, the gap between Brett Smith and Mark Wakefield. And then the gaps behind, you can see they're all under half a second, well, apart from that one. So James Turkington gaining experience, and I'm sure brother Colin will thoroughly enjoy seeing his sibling getting stuck into some really good, serious racing action, but none of them at the moment could do anything about the race leader, Brett Smith. Brett clear by 4.5 seconds. And all of these cars in their own way, by running so close to their rivals, are tripping themselves up a little bit, compromising their very best, their optimum route around any of the laps here. 2.99 miles, 13 turns in each lap. But right now for Mark Wakefield in the number 18 Mini, doing his utmost to just make sure he stays in second place. And really coming under huge pressure as they get to the S's, now known as Brundle and then Nelson. And Rob Smith in the Evergreen Mini really pushing very hard indeed. But it does look as though, looking down at the cockpit there, Mark Wakefield. I don't know what was going on there. I hope he's not lost the knob off the top of the gear lever or something, but I joke. But checking things out. But he seems to have the measure of Rob Smith. But Rob's trying to have a little look up the inside, a little look around the outside at various corners. He knows he's got the race is coming towards its conclusion. But right now, Mark Wakefield seems to just be driving a very, very sensible race in second place. Fastest lap of the race actually just been set by David Grady last time around. Quite as quick just as they crossed the start-finish line there. But it just shows how that battle from Wakefield back to Grady, second back to sixth, is super, super competitive. And it's a slower... Right, well, very shortly, unfortunately, this race, front runner viewers, we are going to leave before the end of this race. We have run out of time, but if you want to watch the live stream, go to the Mini Challenge Facebook page, and it will all be continuing on there. And who's going to win the race? You have to feel as though it's going to be Brett Smith. We'll hang on as long as we can with the front runner broadcast, but the time is counting against us. But right now, this battle for second place, how much closer could it possibly be? Rob Smith in 37 doing everything he can to try and catch and pass Mark Wakefield, but he's being harried from behind by Jeff Smith, who in turn has James Turkington behind him, and David Grady, who not so long ago set the fastest lap of the race, tucked in onto his tail. But Brett Smith in the lead of the race by 4.6 seconds now, seems to have it all under control. When we get the long shot, you can see Brett up front in car number 39, but all eyes, no doubt, are staying on this action centred around the battle for second place. David Grady out over the curbs and beyond, but hoiks it back in. There is our race leader, number 39, Brett Smith. He won the race earlier today and is looking very, very good to make it 2 on the trot. Just a quick sight of car number 35, racing down outside the top 10 at the moment. 18th place for Oakman. David Grady, though, always worth watching him. He really shucks his Mini around, but flamboyant isn't always the best, but it's certainly been effective because he's the fastest driver. But how much life he has left in his tyres, you have to sort of feel that Jeff Smith seems to be the driver with the most pace, but he's blocked up there in number 55 in 4th place overall, while his son Brett is stroking clear at the lead of the race, able to pick his own lines. Jeff Smith has got compromise written all over him as he tries to pass Rob Smith, who in turn is trying to pass Mark Wakefield for 2nd place overall. Across the start-finish line they go again at 5.5 seconds, so another 7/10 of a second loss. Brett Smith is long gone. He's up the front end of the field, turning into Wilson. So Mark Wakefield, 2nd place. 3rd place, almost being pushed around the Wilson hairpin, is Rob Smith from Jeff Smith. 61, great race here from James Turkington. David Grady can do nothing about getting past Turkington. There they are, 2nd through to 6th, covered by, I reckon that's just over a second between all of them now. Kicking up the dirt at Palmer to try and take the shortest route around the circuit. But the driver who really has taken the shortest route, just going through Agostini, the double left-hander behind the paddock, is our race leader, Brett Smith, sitting on an advantage of 5.5 seconds. He's got the job done. Who will finish 2nd? This could go all the way to the finish of the race. But you have to feel that Mark Wakefield has got it under control, or has he? Now, though, time for front runner to leave the broadcast. So, final minute and a half this race, the checkered flag will come out. It looks so Brett Smith has got everything under control. 5.5 seconds clear. There he is, number 39. In the background is the battle, though, the real battle of the race for 2nd place. Will Mark Wakefield hang on from a double attack from Brett's father, Jeff Smith, in 4th, and Rob Smith, who's running 3rd. Let's look in the background of the shot. They will flash into view. There it is, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. It's Wakefield. The next 2 Smiths. Brett's leading the race, but then we've got Rob, then we've got Jeff, and then tucked in behind James Turkington and David Grady. So little space between those 5 cars as they fight over 2nd place, but it's been a really thoroughly strong run and under huge pressure from Mark Wakefield. And just in terms of speed, it looks like Jeff Smith running 4th has got the most speed, but Mark Wakefield, super defensive. He's got 1 more lap to do it on. They're going through Murray's, and then they'll come onto the start-finish line. Start finish straight for the penultimate time. 1 more lap to go for Rob Smith. Will he be able to get the 37 Mini up into 2nd place? But he's tried it many a time and he's been rebuffed on every single occasion until now by Mark Wakefield, but more speed being carried around the outside to go up to Wilson. Now watch out, will Jeff Smith benefit in the 4th place car? Nose in front for Rob Smith, but the tighter inside line belongs to Mark Wakefield. Now, is Jeff Smith going to benefit on the exit of the corner? No, he hasn't. I thought he might just be able to move up into 3rd place as Rob Smith went deep into the corner. Now Rob's trying around the outside at Palmer's. It doesn't always work. You've got to be brave. You've got to have complicity from the other driver. His nose is in front. They touched, they wobbled. It looks like 2nd place now in the hand of Rob Smith. Can he make it stick? Up the inside they go into Agostini, and it's still Wakefield. He got the right position, but then Jeff Smith has nudged his way up the inside. A little bit of body rubbing there, and Rob Smith pushed out to the outside, but Rob's not taking no for an answer. It looks like the battle for 2nd has been settled in favour, you'd have to say, of Mark Wakefield now. Ooh, contact there, but Rob Smith given a shoulder barge by Jeff Smith out onto the grass. James Turkington looking to make a move, but Rob Smith back onto the circuit, but he has lost that position, doesn't want to lose anymore. Grady right on the tail of Turkington. 2 other drivers have got in the mix as well, Goff and Brace. So 2nd through, well really now it's 3rd through. It's Jeff Smith in 3rd, Rob Smith in 4th, Turkington and Grady making an attack on the final lap, and the Moorgate Mini making a run up the inside. Will that get a position gained into the S's? What we can tell you is our race leader, Brett Smith is in on his own. Second place now belongs to Mark Wakefield, but behind them, Rob Smith and Jeff Smith bouncing into each other over the curbs, up and beyond. I think there might be some visits to the race stewards after the event, quite possibly, and James Turkington very nearly gained 2 positions, but that has sorted out that battle for second, third and fourth, because Jeff Smith and Rob Smith got very close and personal, and Rob Smith has ended up back in front, which in some ways sort of feels like the fair result after the earlier contact out at Hamilton. But there, race winner, 2 wins in the day for Brett Smith. No wonder he is absolutely delighted. So it's 39 from Mark Wakefield, 18 in second place, and Rob Smith just gets third place and super close for fourth. Jeff Smith holding off James Turkington. What a finish to what a race. Checkered flag waving all over, and for those at the tail end of the field, they are still racing all the way to the finish. And as you would expect with a mini challenge field with JCW, it doesn't stop until the checkered flag goes out, and the racing for 20th place is as competitive as it is for the first place in the race. But really, Brett Smith made that look remarkably easy. 7.8 seconds clear at the finish, but it was the battling behind that was super, super tight. And really, hats off to Mark Wakefield for resisting enormous pressure from Rob Smith. And then he was given a little bit of an alleviation on that final lap as Jeff Smith got in very, very close indeed, and made assorted challenges around the circuit. They had some blows between them, but that enabled second place to be nailed down by Mark Wakefield. And you can see Mark waving the number out of the window, the number 18 Mini. Very pleased indeed that he held on. Sometimes coming second when you have to fight for it is almost as good as a victory. Any race you have to work. But for Brett Smith, he's backed off, he's fallen down into the pack, but it doesn't matter. He has that race win. Impressive run to fourth place at the end. Hold on now, I'm just trying to see who has lost time. Jeff Smith has fallen down the race order, listed to 10th. I fear he might have been given a penalty for contact on that final lap, which would explain James Turkington going up to 4th, David Grady to 5th, and car number 29 to 6th place, which was Stuart Goff. So here are the results of the third of the mini races at Snetterton. Brett Smith taking victory by 7.8 seconds from Mark Wakefield. Rob Smith, wow, what a battle, and he ended up in third. James Turkington elevated on that final lap to 4th with a penalty for Jeff Smith that dropped him down to 10th place in the final results. David Grady, number 1 on the door, 5th this afternoon. Stuart Goff 6th. Dean Brace carrying our camera, 7th place overall. George Sutton, good meeting for him, and Mohammed Nalwala, another good strong result, 9th place for him. Jeff Smith, a little contact, and then let's hear it from Max Bladen. Leading the race, he spun out of the lead, 1.5 seconds clear, and the whole pack came past him. He fought his way back to 11th place at the end, with Rhys Barr also coming up through the field, having started at the tail end. Thoroughly enthralling race. Vicky Butler-Henderson started 20th, and she ended up 20th overall. But great racing for the mini challenge here at Snetterton. But really, the plaudits today go to Brett Smith. He started the first race, came away with victory in that. And let's have a look at the highlights. Freddie Lee leading away from pole position, Max Bladen from second place, but it got very, very tight indeed. But today was all about the Smiths. There's Max Bladen, left his car side on at Wilson. You had to draw your breath in as he sat there at the hairpin, and pretty much everybody came past him, and then the action was very tight behind it. That was Dean Brace diving up the inside of the stricken Bladen. He would fight his way back, but the real fighting was up the front end. Well, in fact, in the midfield, as you can see, side by side, 21 and 32, which is Mohammed Nalwala and Dean Brace were on our camera cars. But it was the battle for second place. Jeff Smith in 55, James Turkington tucked it behind, David Grady in number 1, and now 42 back on the outside. You run out of track out there, as proved. Nalwala putting 42, Henry Neal out off the side of the circuit, and that cost Neal several positions. And Carl Reed seeing what happens when two cars try to take the corner and the one on the inside locks up and pushes the other wide. So Carl said, thank you, I shall try and at least take one of those positions. And car number 90 keeping on coming across on him, that's Scott Jeffs. Won't be the proudest moment of Scott's career. Meanwhile, out the front, Brett Smith leading all the way, but it was the battle for second place where the action was absolutely at its tightest. Certainly Carl Reed had time for some hand waving there, but all he could see up ahead of him was this battle. And there's Jeff Smith vaulting over the curves, hitting Rob Smith. They'd already clashed earlier in the lap, but no one could stop Brett Smith. Through to take victory. Mark Wakefield, brilliant run to take second place, but it really was all about Brett Smith. And there is our winner. 2 wins in a day, the same smile, but it means even more because he said the car was absolutely fantastic here at Snetterton, and certainly the Eurotech racing crew can be very proud indeed. They didn't get 1 and 2 this afternoon, but they In fact, ended up with 1st and 10th, but nobody could hold a candle to Brett Smith. Seemed to be running away as if from a wasp, but where we ought to go after the race is down with Gary Champion, who's caught our winner, Brett Smith.
Brett, double. That couldn't be a better day's work, could it?
No, definitely not. Qualifying yesterday 11th, if you told me I would have got 3 podiums, 2 of them being a win, I would have, taken your hand off. Yeah, I don't know. Given a bit of debrief this morning from last night from Chief Engineer and my dad, telling me that I should have got past Reese, applied that logic today, applied those sort of lessons today, and I just came past everyone. Seen Blaine in front of me, I was thinking, right, he's going to be a bit more of a challenge, and unfortunately he sort of gifted me the place, to be honest, because he locked up all 4 wheels and went straight onto the hairpin. And unfortunately for him, it meant that he also stalled it and couldn't pull back in front, so I was there ahead, and then Freddie Lee was behind me, backing everyone else up, so I was just gone. So, yeah.
Right, well done, Brett. Thank you. Let's go back to Bruce.
Thank you very much. Very impressive couple of performances there, but no one could hold a candle to Brett Smith there. But yes, you did have to feel for Max Bladen. He managed to work his way to the front and to lock up, but then to sit there with everyone else closing in on him, that must have been a truly frightening moment. Frightening and frustrating, but everyone avoided him, so well done. But the Mini Challenge field, entertaining as ever, and from all the drivers, it's 3 races over the course of 2 days, plus qualifying and practice. It gives them a lot of track time, gaining experience all the time. And we had a few runners coming up from the rear of the field, and it can be done, but it's certainly very difficult in one-make racing to get the whole way up through the order. Max Bladen got his way back up to 11th place, and number 88, Reese Barr, also came up from the tail of the grid, but they didn't break it into the top 10. 11th and 12th they were. But really, today, it was all about Brett Smith and that number 39 entry from Eurotech Racing. There it is in the background of the shot, blue nose and black at the back with the checkered flag on the roof, but 3 podiums, that is very strong in anybody's reckoning in a one-make championship, so no wonder they are so delighted. But the Mini Challenge racers just carry on entertaining wherever they go, and certainly for Brett Smith it's been a weekend to remember. And for people out around the circuit, we've had a packed agenda of racing. British GT Championship, 2 1-hour races kept us on our toes, and the Minis just carried on in the same theme. In fact, there's James Littlejohn, who was out in the British GT Championship lying down having a recovery drink after what was a hugely fraught meeting in which that 24 Aston Martin was right at the sharp end at various points in the race. So a few of the stricken Minis being brought back in here at Snetterton, but that's Freddie Lee. Of course, he was in the mix, he led away from pole, and then suddenly something went wrong down at Rich's. Didn't see if it was a mechanical problem, it was as though he just lost power, and a possible podium position was out of the window. Well, we hope everybody's enjoyed the coverage, and next time we'll be out at Silverstone, so we hope you join us there. So from Snetterton, from me, Bruce Jones, and everyone in the crew, it's goodbye.
The fastest lap set by the 90 on top.